It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. This is a very special show because we have two people who saw the AI revolution coming and have some very deep insights into it. Amy Webb, our futurist, is here from the Future Today Institute, the author of The Genesis Machine and the Big Nine. She's joined by Phil Libin. He started Evernote and is now running an incubator for AI and AI-based companies. Knows all about this stuff. We've got a very smart, very interesting show coming up for you. AI, the primary topic this week on Tech, is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech. Episode 927, recorded Sunday, May 14th, 2023. The cheese tax. This Week in Tech is brought to you by HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. Go to HelloFresh.com/Twit16 and use the code Twit16 for 16 free meals, plus free shipping. And by ExpressVPN. Stop letting strangers invade your online privacy. Protect yourself at expressvpn.com/twit for 3 extra months free with a 1-year package. And by Miro. Miro is your team's online workspace to connect, collaborate, and create together. Tap into a way to map processes, systems, and plans with the whole team. And get your first 3 boards for free to start creating your best work yet at Miro.com/podcast. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. We're going to cover the week's tech news. And when we have a panel of 3, that it's 2 very good people. I always cut the panel down when I have people who have lots of good things to say. Phil Libin is here, old friend, founder of Evernote, co-founder and CEO of a new, if Kurt couldn't be better timing, a new startup incubator called all-turtles.com. And you specialize kind of in AI stuff, right, Phil?
Yeah.
This was a couple of years ago. You were ahead of the curve.
Yeah, 6-7 years ago, back before AI was cool.
Now it might be a little too cool.
Way too cool.
Yeah, too cool for. And he also does, of course, a wonderful app which he's using right now to impress people over video. It's the best name too. mmhmm.app. Also with us, too cool for school, the wonderful Amy Webb, author of The Genesis Machine, CEO of Future Today Institute. Hi, Amy.
Hey.
Great to see you. Of course, we had you on when The Genesis Machine came out last year and did a great interview. And then I had George Church on a few months ago on Triangulation. And you talk about him, the father of modern genomics, in here.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Genomics is fascinating. That's what this is all about. Our question.
That one is. Yeah.
You have a new one?
No, next year. I was going to say the last book on AI was suddenly, it went into another printing. It was already a bestseller, but it went into like 2 more printings because apparently on Fox News, I didn't know this, but apparently like Jeanine Pirro, I don't watch
Jeanine Pirro? She mentioned you?
Somebody on the show, they were talking about like a couple of weeks ago, generative AI in China and I don't know what else. And somebody turned her and was like, how have you not read this book?
Wow.
And
was it the Big Nine?
Yep, the Big Nine. That 30 seconds of airtime led to multiple thousands of copies of that book.
Holy cow.
Completely sold out. They had to go into more printings. So for those of you who think you might want to write books, don't write off Fox News as a vehicle.
Wow. Jeanine Pirro probably,
insane.
she probably could sell a few books.
She probably could.
This was the one about, and it's still completely relevant, about the big tech companies.
Yeah.
What was great about it wasn't just the U.S., Google and Microsoft and Facebook and Amazon, but it was Baidu and Tencent and Alibaba as well. And I thought that made it very, very interesting. And of course, AI is a big part of what the Chinese companies especially are up to. It's kind of a black box. We don't know, really.
Well, no, that's the whole, Google, I guess we'll talk about I/O at some point, but no, it's become incredibly opaque. And some of what I don't really make predictions, but some of the scenarios that I wrote about, I wrote that book 6-7 years ago, is now happening pretty close to what I said might happen. So there's that.
Which was?
Just the massive consolidation and a lot of like Amazon trading your privacy for data, subsidizing what should be provided, subsidizing what used to be government services or offering them for free in exchange for data. Some of the early signs of artists, AGI kind of already happening in a conversational way. So just all that stuff. And of course, nobody took any action, and now everybody's collectively freaking out.
We should have paid attention to Amy. The description on the Hachette, it's from the Hachette Book Group website, is a call to arms about the broken nature of artificial intelligence and the powerful corporations that are turning the human-machine relationship on its head. Yeah, that sounds pretty timely.
Yep.
Actually. Yep. And maybe the genomics thing next year. You got it made.
Yeah, it's super great. I tell people, like, here's all the bad stuff that's coming, and everybody clearly listens and changes.
Yeah,
and there we go.
Yeah, and then they all paid attention.
Very effective.
So Google I/O was really kind of Google's attempt to catch up a little bit. Not because they're behind. This is what's interesting to me. And I would like to, I know you also know a lot about China, having spent time there, and you've been thinking about it for a long time. But, Microsoft kind of, I guess it started really with OpenAI, which Microsoft was a heavy investor in and became an even heavier investor in, and ChatGPT. But even before that, DALL-E and DALL-E 2 and Stable Diffusion and Midjourney. There was just a sudden Cambrian explosion of consumer-facing AI tools. And, of course, the company that we thought would be the leader in all this, Google, found itself playing catch-up this week at Google I/O. Were they behind, Amy, or were they just quieter?
Well, I think it's worth noting that the large language models that have made their way into consumer use were in development for quite a while. And even OpenAI, was founded 2013? Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so my point is...
That was founded because Elon and Microsoft and a few others, but I think chiefly Elon, who put in a billion, I believe, said, we can't let the big tech companies own AI development. We've got to have an open AI system, where people can have input into it. And of course, as soon as OpenAI put out ChatGPT, they kind of closed it down and said, yeah, and maybe we're going to try to make some money on this. Elon had left a few years before, it is said, because he didn't agree with that strategy, that plan. And then
none of this is new.
More recently, Elon and many others have signed a kind of silly letter saying, let's just wait a while. Let's just wait 6 months. Put a pause on this, which many interpreted as his attempt to say, let me catch up. Can you just give me a chance?
Right. He also launched his own truth GPT, maximum truth seeking.
He didn't launch anything.
Guided missile GPT.
He didn't launch anything. He said something, intent. Got all the attention. I intentionally didn't cover it because I thought that's just Elon mouthing off as usual.
Right.
But the real question is, where are we really in AI? And where is China in AI? Where is Google in AI? Where is Facebook in AI? And where is Apple in AI? Because it's was it Neil Stephenson who said the future is here, it's just not distributed evenly?
Evenly distributed, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so again, I think it's worth noting that AI is a huge umbrella, and so we're talking about a pretty...
Let's talk about large language model then, right? That's what...
Right. So it's not new. What is new, and I think you actually said it right when you mentioned a Cambrian explosion, is that there's now... there's a commercial application. And the moment that you get a commercial application, that there's this sort of flywheel that gets created with a lot of fast followers. So Google's been working on this and I should note, Microsoft is one of our clients. So Microsoft, for many, many years, pre-OpenAI, All of this has been in the works. Many people have forgotten, but in February of 2020, to be fair, there was a virus going around that had us all a little bit distracted. But February 2020, OpenAI put out a press release about GPT-2, which was the second gen of their language model. The first was trained on BookNet, I think. It was like 7,000, corpus of like 7,000 books. The second version was that plus I'm assuming we don't know, but I'm assuming Reddit and Wikipedia and, whatever else. The press release, you may remember, said, this is too dangerous for us to release.
Yes.
So that was 3 years ago.
I remember
and it's not like we have an AI police force roaming around or any, OpenAI has sort of gone inverse since then, and it's incredibly opaque, as is Google's language models and systems, because there's there's like a consolidation happening again, and everybody's concerned about figuring out the way. It's consumer applications are one thing. The real money is enterprise. So what's really happening is everybody's trying to figure out how to scale enterprise applications, and that requires cloud. So that's partially why you're seeing, Azure and OpenAI getting together, and AWS and Hugging Face, and Google making a lot of these announcements they're late to the party on the announcements, but they've certainly had the tech there for a while.
It feels like everybody's scrambling, right? They see this exploding. Phil, you what is it, 6 years ago, started All Turtles, and I remember when you started it, it was a kind of an incubator for AI companies, right?
Yeah, and for even longer than that, you remember, I've been on a crusade for like 10 years to get people to refer to Google I/O as Googlio. It's just obviously Googlio. And no one calls it Googlio.
You were way ahead of the game.
I know. I think I've had it. We're just waiting for people to start calling it Googlio.
When you started all of this, what did you think? Where did you think the sweet spot was for AI and for investment?
Well, so I was super optimistic about 6 years ago on conversational AI in particular. I think Amy's right. AI is such a giant topic, but let's just talk about specifically like conversational AI. I wrote a Medium article that's still up there somewhere about why I think that bots were going to be a big thing, and I was excited about it primarily as a user interface paradigm, thinking that this could make technology just much more accessible because humans already developed a way to talk, language, like that was the way. Yeah, exactly. Humans already developed a way to talk, and computers require us to learn a different way to communicate with computers. And I thought, well, once we have good natural language interfaces, it would make computing much more accessible. So I was very bullish about it as a UI paradigm. I'm less optimistic about it now than I was 6 years ago. I think it's come true. I think it is like totally possible to do this stuff. And I think in the article, I even said like we're 5 years out, and I was off by a year, but COVID. So I consider it to be pretty
This is actually a prescient article. I'm just scanning through it now. You wrote it in April 2016, and you point out that Evernote came about because you bought an iPhone and you realized, hey, people are going to have this computing power in their hands. They're going to need a way to kind of keep track of everything. Evernote was a huge success. And then you said it's happening again. The enabling technologies in 2016 are AI, NLP, neural linguistic programming, right?
Or natural language processing.
Natural language program, okay. ML, machine learning, ubiquitous messaging, computer vision, speech, and serverless computing. All of these just recently crossed the good enough line, and the resulting products are about to improve exponentially. So I got two futurists on with me because you both saw this coming. Yeah.
But I'm much less sanguine about it right now. I think we're largely, the hype right now, I think it feels like a mirage to me. I think we've confused the ability to talk with the ability to think. And I think what we're seeing from the LLMs is that they're very glib. They're very good at talking. And we're just so used to associating talking with thinking that we're now ascribing all sorts of like superpowers and miracles to these things.
If
just
somebody's confident, even though they're confidently wrong, we go, wow, that's great. Yeah.
Confidently wrong is sort of my move. That is the CEO, playbook. That's what they teach us in CEO school. So, our jobs are the first to be threatened by these things. But yeah, I think we are as an industry, confusing the ability of these things to talk with the ability for them to actually do anything else. And
are you disappointed?
I'm a little bit worried about it. I am disappointed, yeah. Plus, no one says Googlio, so two big disappointments.
You failed twice. Amy, is that fair? Is that accurate?
I think that's a great synopsis of what's happening. That I would say leaders versus industry, but leaders have confused the ability to talk with the ability to think. My observation is that those in tech know exactly what's happening. That they're
leaders and the media, by the way.
Right. So here's the thing. There's this. So I was at TED a couple of weeks ago, and I would say about half of that week, in some form or another, was devoted to absolute doomsday, apocalyptic hellscape discussions, conversations, whatever, about generative AI. Greg Brockman was there. Sal Khan was there. Former vice president, bunch of hedge fund guys. Like everybody is just. It reminded me a little bit of flossing your teeth too hard. Do you ever do a thing where you floss your teeth slightly too hard and it like hurts, but you keep doing it because you kind of like it?
Yeah.
Is that just me? Everybody now knows me much better than they did before.
I'll give you another analogy that's similar.
Okay.
You know, when you have a loose tooth, you can't keep your tongue off of it, or you just keep playing with it.
There was a certain amount of self-flagellation that everybody was really into, right? How deep down this rabbit hole of absolute horror can we all get to? And it was like, none of this matters. I mean, it doesn't matter in the way that everybody's making it matter. And the issue is that the more of a focus we put on robots that are going to come and kill us in our sleep, that's a nice distraction, because what's actually happening is, in the meantime, so there's a land grab that's happening right now, and every one of the companies that we deal with, I'm mostly advising, C-suites of enormous companies all around the world, and suddenly people who have no background on this are having to make. This is a very complex operating environment for executives. Suddenly, they're supposed to be able to make decisions about AI. They're all torqued up about it. There's this just collective, like, we're going to miss the boat. Let's give whatever company all of our data. Magically, this will solve our problems.
That's kind of what Facebook did with the metaverse. 20 billion
I don't think so at all.
No.
I think.
Okay.
I mean, were you being sarcastic?
No, I was being sincere.
Were you serious?
I was serious. It's kind of the MO for a lot of the tech industry. What's the next big thing? And let's jump on it before anybody else.
Siri. Sorry, I just said the F word. I shouldn't have.
That's okay.
Here's an AI problem. Everybody's been at me. I finally switched back over to an iPhone, and this.
She's a moron.
Conversational system will not.
She's a moron.
Stop.
No, she's horrible. By the way, Google did not at Googlio did not mention Google Assistant at all. Right?
You mean the duplex thing?
No, the thing on your phone that you talk to, that is what most people consider a conversational AI.
Because I think search is all that matters for them. I mean, I think it's a given that you're going to talk more than type. So it sounds like
you're saying the tech industry is running around like a chicken with its head.
No,
off.
I'm saying the tech industry may look a little unfocused, but what's happening, I think, behind the scenes is there is a enormous gold rush right now, and the gold is not the AI. The gold are all of the It's the enterprise. It's the businesses.
Right.
You're trying to gobble them up, or maybe it's hungry hippos, and you're like pushing the game from the. So I think that's what's happening. I think that there's this mad dash right now because there's this perceived. We're all behind the curve, and we all need to start using these tools as soon as possible, is what I think happened.
Phil, most of your investments look like they're consumer focused.
We have quite a mix. We have consumer, we have enterprise, but I think I think just like the original gold rush. So I agree, there's a gold rush, and what happens in the gold rush, back to the actual gold rush, is very few people make money on gold. Because turns out there's not that much gold. People make money, right? Picks and shovels, right? They make money selling stuff to the gold rush.
Which is why Microsoft loves this, because they have Azure.
Yeah. And that's what's happening now. And there's really not, it's very unclear to me what the actual transformation is. Again, when I talk to very smart people, To me, it's almost a replay of some of the Web3 conversations I was having, where a few years ago, people were like very smart people who I have a lot of respect for were telling me about how Web3 is going to change everything. And I was like, I don't understand what you're saying. I see your face hole moving and I understand the words that are coming out of it, but they don't form a coherent thought for me.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a similar sense. I'm not as confident in that AI is quite as empty as Web3. I am still confident that Web3 is a nothing. AI, obviously there's stuff there, and I'm still very bullish about the ability of AI in the larger sense to completely transform everything. I just think that the current LLM phase, I can't help but think that it's vastly overhyped.
Is the problem it's counterfactual?
I think again, the best way I can think about the problem, and it's always possible that I'm wrong about this. I want to preface it with that. It is entirely possible that I'm just wrong about this. And I hope I'm wrong about this. I really do. I really hope that like the thing is about to
I'm not sure I hope.
Solve all of our problems.
I'm not sure I hope you're wrong because it's scary, but okay.
But I'm kind of seeing this like, again, I think we've confused the ability to make it glib, to make it talk, with it to do something. Like when I was a kid, I remember Garry Kasparov, right, said that a computer will never beat a human grandmaster at chess. I was like 10 years old when he said that.
He was the world champion at the time.
World champion at the time. Brilliant person, still is. And I remember thinking at the time, you don't understand what computers are, and you don't understand what chess is if you think that. Because obviously, and like within a couple of years, he had lost, and now no one would expect humans to be competitive with chess. But also like back then we thought that playing chess was like, you really had to think, and it was like a deep strategy involved. And now we understand that you can just do that mechanically. And the same thing happened with Go and a bunch of other things. Well, it turns out, and this is really kind of, to me, very surprising and kind of delightful. It turns out that talking is the same thing. It turns out that you can like auto-generate kind of in George Orwell 1984 style. You can just like pull a crank and very compelling words stream out of it.
As long as you don't care if they're accurate or factual.
And a bunch of other things. But it turns out that just talking, just playing chess, doesn't mean you actually are thinking about anything. It's not that special. And now it's like we love the fact, we're infatuated with the fact that these things can talk and draw and do stuff like that. And we're assigning to them all sorts of other superpowers, which I see no reason to think that they have. They're not actually super smart. They're just super good artists.
Well, I would like to push back a touch, because I think if we're just talking about consumer applications, that's one thing. But on Gen AI is doing really interesting things in science. Mm-hmm. There's a company called Absci that figured out how to use a zero-shot generative AI system to create, I think, something like 3 million novel combinations of molecules per week, trying to find new therapeutic antibodies. And the reason that this is significant is because it would take, I don't know how many scientists. It would be impossible for a team of scientists to do this on their own without that type of assistive tech. So I actually do think it's the infrastructure that matters right now. But the thing that we're all talking about, and quite frankly, I'm exhausted listening to us talk about, is not us. Phil, you're awesome, obviously, but just generally, is the same conversations that I heard at TED. It's the same conversations I'm hearing everywhere. There's actually really interesting, really compelling opportunities here, but they're just not in the spaces where people are used to looking.
Well, and they're not ChatGPT based.
Well, I'm not talking about ChatGPT. Right. I'm talking about a generative AI system, which is different things.
Well, it's related to the chess problem, though. In a constrained environment, you can do amazing things, right? If you're saying, I want to do gene folding, I can do it much faster with AI. And Google showed that at Google I/O than we've ever done before. That's a huge breakthrough.
At some point, it's a meaningless label, right? Like AI.
Yeah.
At some point, it's just
like blockchain. It's like Web3. It's a buzzword.
Well, no, those are just nonsense. But like AI covers a range of technologies that are, to Amy's point, very useful and very useful for very many things. Yeah. They're just like, but they've always been there. It's not like there's been the thing that's had a sharp recent breakthrough, right, is large language models. It is ChatGPT. It is things like Midjourney. It's specifically the thing that like shocked all of us in the past 6 months is how glib they've become. That's taken a massive leap forward. And that's caused all this attention and all the investment. But that leap forward, the leap forward in glibness, does not actually correspond to like a significant advance in anything else. I think all the other stuff has been interesting progress for the past decade and will continue. And I'm very optimistic about where algorithms are going to go in the next 10 years. I'm not super optimistic that large language models are anything but a kind of a diversion from that.
Didn't Demis Hassabis recently talk about the next generation of all of this is not needing the large language model?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I think that's
isn't
a very
that
good
like
point.
something that they're like some basic research they're working on?
Hopefully. So
He's the
thing that
CEO of DeepMind. We should explain.
It's DeepMind. DeepMind.
They
so
merged DeepMind
Google
with Brain. They merged the two
but
together.
It's DeepMind kept their branding, right?
That's
so
right.
That's the name
That's
of
right.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's this book that came out a few years ago, not about this, but it's called Jobs. I'm trying to remember the author.
It's a great name.
It's a great name. It's kind of a serious, economics book. There's a bullshit jobs theory. Doesn't have much to do with AI. It basically says that there's many people, entire industries worth, that have jobs that are bullshit jobs. That like actually the job is just like it's just sort of self-fulfilling. It doesn't actually do very much.
It's kind of middle management. There's a lot of jobs.
Middle and upper and lots of industries.
Yeah.
And they don't actually like produce very much. And these tend to be pretty high paying jobs.
This is, by the way,
because,
the brilliant David Graeber, who's passed away. But
That's right, yes.
yeah, he wrote Dead and the Dawn of Everything. Quite an amazing fellow. Yeah.
And it's a really good book. And it most of these are white collar, pretty well paid jobs. There's very few like bullshit jobs, in construction. Like we tend not to pay people to like dig holes and fill them up again. Right. But we pay a lot of people to like fill out forms and like write summaries of other forms. And
he says the HR consultants, communication coordinators, telemarketing researchers, corporate lawyers, and I'd add Douglas Adams, phone sanitizers.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
The people we put on that ship.
Right. Yeah. And there is that danger that we all die of a infection spread by dirty telephones.
That's right.
As Douglas Adams predicted. But what the generative large language models are doing is they're proving to be really good at jobs that don't need to be done in the first place.
They're at the BS jobs.
Right.
Yes.
And like and I think it would be wonderful if we said this is a temporary thing to getting rid of the BS jobs, not automating them, because I don't need a computer doing them either. I just don't need them to be done.
Yeah.
But there's a great danger that in fact, instead of doing that, they actually just make it much worse. The example to that is, for example, DocuSign, right? I think DocuSign, not AI, this is a pre-AI company, but DocuSign, which I use multiple times a day, every day, right? So in some sense, it's a great product. On the other sense, it's horrendous. Because what does DocuSign do, right? DocuSign makes it easy for people to not read contracts, not read what they're signing. And so it's like, oh, there used to be this giant bureaucratic thing of, sending contracts around that it was a giant pain in the ass. And DocuSign made it easy to just skip over that stuff. But it hasn't eliminated all the nonsense. It's just made it easier. And so I'm kind of afraid that a lot of these, especially enterprise-focused LLM applications, are just going to be like the supersized DocuSign of everything, where we entrench the idiocy and just say, oh, the computers can handle it. But that just gets us even further away from understanding what's happening.
We're going to
making us dumber, faster.
Yeah, automate bureaucracy. Not get rid of it.
Yeah.
Just make it faster. And
we should just get rid of it.
Yes, that would be the right thing, the smart thing to do.
And then we won't need the AI for the large language models, right? Like if someone is going to send me some bullet points, if someone writes a few bullet points, but they want to send me an email, but they want to make it like add more words to it. So they ask, ChatGPT to just like convert those bullet points into an email that they send me. I don't want that, right? Dear God, I don't want that. Just send me your bullet points if you can't be bothered.
Yeah, pretty
to write
soon.
it yourself.
In fact, Google, I think, came this close to demonstrating the notion that you would have an AI write your email, he would have an AI respond to your email, and pretty soon you're out of the whole picture, and the AIs are just talking to one another.
So
they practically demonstrated that.
Right. So we should just we should just cut. Right?
Cut that all out.
Decision points, and that whole thing is just gone, not automated.
Right.
But it's fascinating.
But there is something. Walmart. I was just trying to pull up the article. Walmart is using a company to do vendor negotiations. So it is in this case using an AI system, and they're only using it. It was a pilot. They're using it for shopping carts.
Pactum AI.
Yep, that's it. So, and what's fascinating is, it doesn't mean that humans are procurement officers are bad. It's just that we have to go to meetings. We have to go to the bathroom. We're pulled away from different things. We get sick. And it takes us time to read. If you have an AI system negotiating on your behalf instead, it just goes much, much, much faster. And it turns out on the other end, something like 75% of the human negotiators, preferred working with the AI over other humans.
This reminds me of what we've done to the stock markets, right? I mean, we've basically done that in stock markets. There's
with ETFs, electronic.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like Michael Lewis's book, Flash Boys, or Flash, what was it? Where all of this stuff is happening at the speed of light, no human interaction. Arbitrage is happening. It's all doing it automatically. It's not like it's intelligent. It doesn't have to be intelligent.
I think, again, like, this is where I think we all get trapped, which is where we go from abstraction and ambiguity to suddenly, like, a calculator. A calculator is a super effective tool that I remember when I was in elementary school we weren't supposed to use. Calculators are ubiquitous now. They're in our phones. You don't know basic math, a calculator is going to not be super. Or you're going to come up with an infinite number of other types of uses that it probably don't have to do with math, but it's not going to be useful for that purpose. Right. It's made math faster for most people. So I think that there are plenty of cases where, like, if it's contract negotiation, or I saw a very, very interesting AI tool out of the Emirates that does some very clever, it looks through like your team and your company and their skills, and then figures out what percentage of them are deficient for the type of job that they have, and then recommends how they would need to be upskilled. It's a really, really clever tool that would just, again, a human could do it, but it's just faster and better for another to use an assistive tool, right? Which also I would just really quickly put in a plug for the Middle East. There's actually a lot of interesting stuff happening with AI there, including large language models in Arabic that are launching in UAE and KSA. And there are supposedly enormous language models in China that are much bigger than what we've got here with OpenAI, and supposedly took fewer, required less power. But of course, they haven't shown anybody what's in them or how they actually work, so who knows?
But it sounds like, though, we're kind of saying large language models are not the way to go. Is that what you're saying, Phil? That they're not really the important thing in AI?
That's my strong suspicion. Yes. I
you
could
agree?
be wrong,
you agree, Amy?
My strong suspicion.
LLMs are a kind of a dead end?
I don't think it's a dead end as much as it's just the shiny.
It's distracting. Is it a distraction?
It's the next stepping stone on the path.
Yeah.
Right. But I think the idea is to get us to a point where we don't need those models anymore. Instead, you may be feeding in new data, which might be your company data, for example.
Well, that's the problem with LLMs right now. They're frozen in time.
Yeah.
And it requires such power to be real time and keep up that nobody's doing that, as far as I know. Although ChatGPT is apparently going to, this week, they're adding a bunch of plugins and real-time web search, which sounds to me like they are, in fact, going to start putting in real-time data.
So I think this is a platform play. I think what's coming is it's like a platform layer. I saw a demo of Instacart. So like you ask ChatGPT to write you a recipe.
Right.
You put in your parameters, right? So vegetarian, I like spicy food, I've got a whatever allergy, spits out a recipe with the instructions, and then you could say, great, go buy me all of that stuff buy all of it for me. And it will go to Instacart and populate your shopping cart with all of those things, and you say deliver it by whatever window, right? Deliver it to my house by 4:00 today. So this is really interesting. But if I was a brand, if I was a CPG, I tested this, and the problem is that there's not a big variety in the brands that come up, like what auto-populates the shopping cart. So the search problem that news organizations and brands have had, and as a result, to Phil's point, job of SEO, with apologies to anybody who works in search engine optimization, that is coming for like this next iteration of invisible computing. How do I get my brand to pop up first? Because when I did it, I basically got the exact same brand over and over again for all the stuff that showed up in my cart.
Yeah, that's no good.
I think,
but that's early days. Maybe it'd get better, right?
I think there's kind of two. We have this rubric at All Turtles at our studio. There's like, sort of broadly speaking, there's two types of startups. There's like two types of ideas of tech products of companies. There's stuff that solves problems, and then there's stuff that doesn't. And there's stuff that's just like creates something innovative that's artistic, but it wasn't a problem. And I don't know very much about that type. I focus on the things that solve problems. And there's nothing wrong with things that don't solve problems. They're just like beautiful and artistic and unexpectedly, delightful. There's many of those things.
Yeah, Midjourney's cool, whether it's valuable or not. It's still fun to play with.
Well, and so was like Instagram. Like arguably, like Instagram didn't solve a problem, but it's still
created
cool.
plenty, but it didn't solve
all sorts of things.
Ruined travel for the most of us, but okay.
But I think it's important to not like. I think there's a lot of ideas masquerade as solving a problem when they're not, and the way you know that is you just have to ask, like, is this a real problem? And usually, problems that are real have been around for a while.
Right. There's a reason.
Solutions could be new, but the problems have been around for a while. So if you say like, if you were to take, every human being on the planet and you like wrote down the top 20 problems or the top 100 problems for every single human being on the planet, in what percentage of those it's too difficult for me to find a recipe that I want and then buy it from Instacart? Like, where would that rank as a problem? And I would say no one in the history of the universe has ever said, you know what I wish were better? Looking up recipes on the internet and then automating buying it at Instacart. Like, no one has ever expressed that as a problem.
It is actually a problem for me. So I'm on the road a bunch. I tend to cook dinner often for my family. And I got to tell you, like on a Tuesday after I've been in 16 hours of meetings, the last thing I want to do is deal with dinner.
Right.
So yeah, I
but haven't solutions to that been around for like
I got a solution.
10 years?
Our sponsor, HelloFresh. Happy Mother's Day, by the way, Amy. I should have said that right away. And this would be a great gift for Mother's Day. It's not too late. Our sponsor, HelloFresh. We'll come back and talk more about AI in just a second. But you gave me such a good opening.
I mean, we can go with it.
I cannot ignore it. We got our first HelloFresh box. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and I made this. This was really good: pork sausage and bell pepper risotto. HelloFresh delivered all the ingredients I needed in exactly the right proportion, and then walked me through the preparation. And it was a great lesson in how to make risotto. It was fantastic, and now I've got a whole new thing in my repertoire. Flavor is in full bloom at HelloFresh because they have added some really wonderful new tastes. Chef-crafted recipes with ripe seasonal ingredients delivered right to your door. By the way, the peppers in this I've never seen such perfect peppers. The sausage was flavorful and delicious. It was incredible. The lemons, the garlic, everything in here. This May, HelloFresh is celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month with some limited time, authentic recipes created in partnership with Surbi Sani. He's the chef at Tagmo in New York City. Enjoy a cultural taste tour right in your own kitchen. Some really mouth-watering, amazing things. Now, we were trained during the pandemic to call for takeout. And I think it's time to kind of step back a little bit and get HelloFresh instead and start feeding your family without the high price tag, without all the, bad stuff that restaurant food puts in there. These are quick and easy meals that are fresh, fast, and delicious. Their new fast and fresh options are ready in 15 minutes or less. And the quality is superb. HelloFresh cares about quality. That's why their seasonal ingredients are picked at peak ripeness and travel from the farm to your home in less than 7 days. So they're fresh, and I will vouch for that. I'm blown away by the quality. They do more than just delicious dinners. You can not only take your pick from 40 weekly recipes, which change all the time, you could choose from more than 100 items to round out your order. Snacks, lunches, desserts, pantry necessities, all of a sudden, everything you need is coming in one box on the delivery day you choose. You don't have to scour the grocery store for that, ingredient or to complete your recipe, because everything you need for this recipe is in the box. Fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients, so you have just what you need. Plus, that cuts down on food waste. Also, if you're hosting a get-together, HelloFresh and HelloFresh Market make dinner time a snap with deliciously easy options that'll please everyone at your table. From fit and wholesome to pescatarian to veggie, they've got a meal plan that suits every lifestyle. You can swap out proteins and sides to your liking. In fact, that's one of the things that's great on these recipe cards is they say, oh, you want to try a custom recipe? You can modify it with chicken cutlets instead of the pork, that kind of thing. This is really fun and great. Save money on your growing to-do list with the help of HelloFresh. It's cheaper than grocery shopping and a lot cheaper than takeout. You can take my word for that. We could stop that bad habit we all got into during the pandemic. HelloFresh. It's America's #1 meal kit. And if you go right now to HelloFresh.com/twit16, TWIT16, use the offer code TWIT16, you'll get 16 free meals. Wow. Plus free shipping. Okay. That's pretty good. HelloFresh.com/twit16, the offer code TWIT16, to get 16 free meals plus free shipping. And there is no AI in this recipe card. It's all human intelligence, chef designed. HelloFresh.com/twit16. I couldn't resist, Amy. You gave me such a good opening.
It was.
I had to do it. Let me ask, this is probably a dumb question, but you made me think of this when you talked about Garry Kasparov. I remember interviewing Ray Kurzweil, and he's been promoting this idea that the singularity, is this a singularity, first of all? He said it would be here by now. Is this the singularity? No. Singularity is when machines become as smart as humans, start designing their own stuff. It's a hockey stick, and all of a sudden, woof, it's exponential growth. So this is not the singularity. But I asked him, well, is there something different about the way we think than the way a machine thinks? And he says, well, if you can't tell the difference, who cares? But I think Garry Kasparov had, as many humans do, this notion there's something about the thinking I do in chess that is not mechanistic, it's not deterministic, it's not something a machine could do. He was proven wrong. You've just said conversation. Turns out a machine can do exactly as well as a human, maybe better than most. But do you think that there's something that we do in our brains that is ineffable, that a machine cannot capture?
So a couple of things. So I think Garry Kasparov went on from that early prediction.
He changed his tune,
one of the
of
people,
course. Yeah.
He really he called it centaur chess, because he's bad at branding, but it was kind of a brilliant thing. The idea was that a computer plus a person was going to be much better chess player, much more interesting.
He was right,
either
by the way.
By themselves.
All modern chess masters play this way, right?
Yeah, for a while. But he really invented was what we really, and we believe this at Evernote a lot. We said AI really ought to be, the A ought to stand for augmented. It's augmented intelligence. It's not artificial. It's not about making a computer that's smarter than a person. We don't want that. It's about making the person much smarter. It's about the person and the computer being much smarter than either could be by themselves. That's the augmented intelligence vision. And that, by the way, is why the singularity probably won't happen, because it's not that the machines are going to leave us behind. It's that the machines are going to take us with them. It's going to be the people plus computers kind of together. Well, that's being the intelligent thing.
Ray's way of putting that was, well, no, they'll appreciate us because we are their creators. So they'll treat us like their parents.
Hopefully better than I treat my parents.
We need to stop anthropomorphizing all this tech. I hate to be the the pragmatist in the room, but listen, there's
too much woo-woo. I agree, and it's not.
But there's also plenty of examples of learned helplessness. So there are plenty of ways in which the machines have. We are no longer truly in charge of what's happening because we don't choose to be.
Well, for instance, if that I use Google Maps whenever I drive, I couldn't drive somewhere without Google Maps to save my life.
So that's a good example.
That's a learned helplessness.
A lot of people can't spell because in Japan. So I think a lot of people who listen know that I lived in Japan for a really long time. They used to, when you applied for a job, you had to handwrite a particular type of resume because you were being graded on your
handwriting.
Your handwriting and your knowledge of the character set.
Yeah.
That is sort of less important right now. And even down to something called a hunko, which was a huge bureaucratic mess, but it was a stamp that had your name on it and you had to ink it like in a red ink. That is largely not totally obsolete, but a lot of that has gone away.
It was a recent news story that they were going to stop using hunkos in the government.
Actually, I know the guy. I'm friends with the government official who made that happen. But
that was a big deal.
My point is that we've already in some ways given in, but there are plenty of other cases where, because the question that you asked is like, I think you were asking about agency.
Yeah.
I'm an endurance cyclist, and I have my bike is outfitted with a computer and sensors everywhere, which could theoretically allow me to check out when I'm doing a really long, hard ride. But it causes me to focus and check in more because I'm like neurotically focused on my output and my cadence and my speed. So if anything, it's made me much more present. And this is AI-powered technology.
Amy, I would say for those metrics, yes, but maybe you're not hearing the birds singing and the. I'm
totally not. I've got Jawbone earphones right here, blaring Soundgarden and Metallica very loudly.
Okay, there you go.
But that my point is like it's hard for us to have the infrastructure conversations. Phil said this earlier, and it's worth I think double clicking on. In as much as all of this is a gold rush for oxygen in the room, for like having the thought leadership or the conversations or the attention or whatever, the large language models, the ChatGPT, this is kind of like the thing that we're interested in right now collectively, but it's not what matters. The stuff that matters is the infrastructure.
But let me point out that if it weren't for the gold miners, we wouldn't have Levi's, right? We kind of needed that to create these infrastructures.
Oh yeah, a lot of this is about generating. So this is about how the conversation is about creating value, but it's really about creating revenue because there's an enormous amount of investment needed to push a lot of this forward. I mean, a conventional search on Google is what 1/5 the cost or 1/7 the cost right now,
according to Sam Altman.
GPT.
1/10, yeah.
So
it's a big difference. I remember it being said. I don't know if this is true that. After the crash of the .com crash of 2000, people said, you know what? It wasn't so bad because of the infrastructure created. We were able to do what we've done in the intervening 20 years. They've said the same thing about the railroads. In the early days of the railroads, almost all the railroad businesses that created the Transcontinental Railway failed. They went bankrupt. But we got the infrastructure. Maybe we're in that same situation.
It is, and that's what we ought to be talking about because that's what concerns me. It's not like I have 10,000 GPUs sitting behind me in like the room behind me.
No, but Microsoft and Google do.
That's my point. So you need a backbone in order to make a lot of this work, and therefore the future of the cloud is to some degree being determined by decisions, right? So.
It's clear Microsoft knows that. Why else would they put $10 billion?
No, but that's why that's the conversation I wish we were having, not the anthropomorphized raised,
I agree.
Kurzweil,
the whole hallucination thing. And I apologize for bringing it up, but I just thought I'd ask the question. Obviously,
but I mean, listen, I know it's kind of boring, but I feel like this crowd. I feel like
They're
this
smart.
crowd, if anybody is willing to listen and to talk about it, because that it's that technology that really does matter going forward.
And we've been saying that on all our shows for some time, that stop the anthropomorphization. That it's not hallucinating. There's it didn't. Kevin Roos, ChatGPT did not fall in love with you. That is a mistake to apply those human attributes.
No, but it's good for clicks, and so all the journalists. Having all these experiments where they tricked, I'm air quoting, tricked AI into falling, and then they sort of exhibited, human-like language around love and sex or racism or whatever else. It's like silly. It's a way to get clicks. I'm so tired of it.
I think there's a couple of real issues. One is just to because I hate leaving a big question like this open-ended, but you asked, Leo, if there's something ineffable. I think you used the word ineffable.
Yes.
That's why I remember it. It's a good word. I'm going to say ineffable 3 more times today.
It's better than Googlio. I just want to say,
I'm saying Googlio from now on.
Thank you, Amy.
got it.
Whether there's something ineffable about the way humans think that can't be reproduced by a computer. And I very, 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 very strongly don't think there is. I don't think there's anything magical that's happening in that we think that couldn't be done by a computer. I don't think that LLMs get anywhere near that. So I think there's absolutely the stuff that's going on when people think that is not anywhere near what's happening right now with large language models and with AI. But at some point in the future, sure, I don't believe there's a magical thing that you couldn't get a computer to do eventually.
Is this a stepping stone to that?
Right now.
Isn't this a stepping stone to that?
I in some sense, but I'm not sure, as Amy said, whether it may be a stepping stone or it actually may be a wrong turn. And I don't know. We'll figure it out. But it's okay. We can science can take all sorts of wrong turns and correct, and we'll get there sooner or later.
It does all the time. Somebody
in terms of
made a wonderful, it was on Reddit, model of what the solar system would have to look like if Ptolemy was right and everything was revolving around the Earth. And there were all sorts of little spinny. It was a very complicated model compared to the very simple model if we rotate around the sun.
But I
we
think
make wrong turns all the time.
That's right, and we shouldn't discourage that, right? We give ourselves the freedom to do it and to come back from it.
Yeah.
I think Amy's talking about the infrastructure is deeply interesting. And I agree that that's actually a really interesting topic. I think if you look at like things like the gold rush, things like the .com burst, things where that created a bunch of infrastructure, they really do 2 things that are useful in the future. And the question is, are either of those 2 things happening now? And I don't think they are. The 2 things that they typically do is they create infrastructure that is usable by other things in the future. Right. So the gold rush created railroads, and it turns out that you can use railroads for all sorts of things other than trying to get to San Francisco to mine for gold. They were generally useful. .com bubble, which I was a very happy part of. That was when I first started my first company, created a bunch of internet infrastructure, a bunch of backbone, a bunch of stuff like that was very useful for all sorts of stuff. I'm not sure that the current infrastructure being created by AI is actually generally useful, because infrastructure has gotten more and more specific. Like you can't really take a lot of the GPUs that were used for like crypto mining, for example, and repurpose them.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that
That's
the
a very
infrastructure
good point.
being created is actually going to be useful. But the other thing that these things did,
and they're like,
right. But the other thing that these things did, which was just as important, is they concentrated wealth. And in the past, you needed concentrated wealth to actually fund massive new leaps forward, right? So the gold rush in San Francisco gave us James Lick, right? If anyone wants a fascinating story, Google James Lick and the Lick Observatory, on this mountain in San Jose. And he was just a guy who made a lot of money selling pianos and then chocolates, co-founded Ghirardelli Chocolate, and then bought a bunch of real estate, and then went on to fund all sorts of amazing stuff. And previous to that, we had the Rockefellers and the Morgans and Walmart and like things that concentrate wealth. It tended to be in the past that it was these sort of dynasties that had more money than knew what to do with, that would then massively invest in other things and move forward. Whereas opposed to if you just had this wealth that was kind of spread out evenly, wouldn't have enough of a of a center of gravity to invest.
Oh, you just made an argument for billionaires.
Well, billionaires and a lot of the companies that kind of came out of the original .com bubble, like Google, like Yahoo, like Facebook, like these companies made a bunch of money, and maybe the thing that they were working on back then kind of imploded, but they had a bunch of money. They funded a bunch of research.
There was a lot of fiber buried. That is,
I'm not sure to what extent that's happening right now. Right?
Yeah.
Because to Amy's point of the big 9, if it's really the same companies right now that are doing it, right? I don't know that we're going to get that much new wealth accumulated and that many new hands. Maybe we might. And I'm not sure if the infrastructure is that reusable. So I'm overall. This is a very, very interesting.
I haven't thought about this before. You're right. This is an interesting argument you're making. That's a novel argument because you're right. Some of the TPUs, some of the new, like at Googlio, I'll say that. There was a new there was like a new chip. Right. And everybody's working on new.
Yeah, they put the Tensor chip into their phones, and it's particular. And, right. And Microsoft's working on NPUs as well for their.
I mean,
hardware.
I don't think we go backwards. I don't think there's a world without AI, and I think that's total bullshit. Like these moratoriums on development, and this is a great. Again, it's a huge distraction. But
moratorium
right,
was not on development, right? The moratorium that they asked for, and I actually I take it in good faith. I don't know about I know Gary Marcus pretty well, who was one of the main people driving it. I do not question his motives at all. I don't think.
So you think it's a good idea that we should have a moratorium? What was the moratorium on? Not on development.
The moratorium was not on development. The moratorium was on wide-scale deployment.
Okay.
And
it was what OpenAI said originally, which is this is too dangerous to release.
Yeah, and I didn't sign that letter. I don't think anyone's waiting to see which way I go because I'm genuinely conflicted by it because in general, moratoriums do sound silly to me, but I don't question the good faith nature of it. And I think there's a strong argument to be made that we really are putting these things out to hundreds of millions of people, maybe too quickly. So I don't think
there's
that a
a reason to. They're being put out because the reinforcement with human feedback, it
makes them better.
Learning with human feedback. We are they.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
that was OpenAI's argument. We can't go any farther until we release it to the public. We need that input.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't buy that?
Buy that, but sure.
There are so many. There's so many not easier, but better ways to go about safeguarding the future and regulation. They just don't. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole because, as everybody knows, I won't stop. But like the way that we have regulated in the past does not work for our present and future states when it comes to certain types of technology. Yeah. We just need a different path forward. There are plenty of different avenues. How
likely is that?
I'm not arguing for the moratorium. Yeah. I don't know whether it's a good idea or not. I'm just saying that it's not. I don't dismiss it 100% out of hand, and I don't question the motives of at least many of the people who are behind it.
And one of the arguments against it was, some people will stop, but not everybody. And that just lets China or whoever, or the UAE or whoever, continue in their process. And
can I go back to this thing about what Phil said? Because I can't stop thinking about it.
You love this infrastructure thing. Go ahead.
No. But so here's the argument that I'm spinning out in my head. So the tools. So to be fair, there were the railroad barons, right? So you can't. Not just anybody can like plop a train car on that rail and just go wherever they want. However, it is still accessible, knowable technology. Yes. And if you have the right amount of capital and wherewithal and you can negotiate, you can participate. What Phil has made me think about is these systems really are designed to further the next generation of AI, which is already fairly concentrated and entrenched. And what's happening is the value creation in the future winds up with an even smaller group of people, because it's not like anybody can just hop in and create new value. That's a really interesting. So this time around, this is general purpose technology, right? So the infrastructure layer of the more important GPT, which is general purpose technology, is not like a pick or a shovel, which is a rudimentary tool that anybody could get. Now, you may not have the land rights, and it's not, it's different this time around because it's much more closed.
Is it though? Because I think all of this LLM is a well-known technology. Nobody owns it. It requires a certain amount of hardware, but not an infinite amount. I mean, Stable Diffusion was able to do what it was able to do without huge capital investment.
You would need to create and train a new model to do something better than what exists. I mean, you would have to have enormous amounts of money, and you would have to have enormous access to data, which is being closed off more and more. That's the other interesting thing. Regulations could wind up backfiring.
Yeah, because you need to scrape all the public data.
Right. And what could start happening in Europe is all of these bills, which are in the process of passing, all this legislation, which was intended to help people, could actually wind up having a reverse effect. It could actually decrease competition in the future because it's...
Yeah, the Italian regulator blocked ChatGPT for several weeks until they agreed to certain privacy restrictions. And you're saying that's depleting the
I'm saying if you spin this out, if you spin this out in the future, the sort of unintended consequences that they wind up protecting the companies with the trained models and make it harder for new competition.
regulatory capture. They set up a barrier to entry. But isn't it the case that we are seeing hundreds of companies every week spring up around these large language models?
They're customers of them.
They're all dependent on ChatGPT or Microsoft.
They're not buying the pick or the shovel.
Yeah.
Right. They are customers who are building applications on top of.
So they're just completely dependent on these big companies. Right.
And to me, so again, like the analogy to me that makes the most sense is media. So all of these media organizations just gave away the keys to the kingdom and didn't fundamentally change their business models so that they could get onto the platform. And it was a brutal mistake. And I think that's going to happen with brands, with CPG, with.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you who's worried about Google using AI in its search results instead of its spider links. Neiman Lab has an article. Google is changing up search. What does that mean for news publishers? They're worried it'll decrease the traffic because people will read the summary, the AI summary, and never get to the publisher's sites.
Yeah, you know what? Let's go back 20 years. I'm done with news organizations. I have for the past 2 decades, and I'm just finished. I'm done having the conversation.
You don't believe they're whining, in other words.
I don't believe they're serious about radically reinventing a business model that makes sense for the 21st century.
So, look, I mean,
I feel zero sympathy, and this is my background. I came out of journalism.
Yeah, and
I feel no
by the way, this
right
is
now.
what we do. I mean, Twit does not do any journalism. We merely comment on existing, work done by other journalistic entities. So we are kind of.
I think Jeff Jarvis and I pretty much disagree on everything, and I think this is one point that we actually agree on.
I got to get you on with Jeff then. That sounds like fun.
You should not. That will not be fun for anybody.
Oh, that bad, huh? But he does agree that the publishers are whining because they're, Google's done nothing but drive traffic to them. Although I have to say, this is from Neiman Labs. This is an example of a barred search where you would get all the information you needed from the AI generated synopsis.
So fine.
This isn't a snippet. This is a lot more than a snippet, though. This is enough information that you could stop right there.
Great. Well, and when they introduced the knowledge graph, 7 or 8 years ago, they should have had the conversation then. And even before then, when they were indexing websites and nobody understood how, they should have had that conversation then. It's like
there's nothing in the Bible or the Constitution or kind of anywhere that guarantees a particular business model the right to perpetual existence.
True.
I mean, there's nothing that says that,
But if those original sources go away, what's ChatGPT or Google's SGE gonna? What's it gonna use for the original sources?
That's
to do its own enterprise reporting.
But I think that's a very big problem. It's a very big question. But I think the way forward isn't in every individual company acting in their narrow short-term self-interest to avoid the work of reinventing what they do, right? It's everyone saying, oh, but this disrupts, technology X disrupts the way that I've been doing things for the past Y years. Therefore, something's a problem. That is the nature of every technological innovation, is it's going to disrupt a bunch of stuff. I'm much more concerned about the larger kind of societal implications than I am with individual.
And as some have pointed out, in fact, in this Neiman article, it also gets rid of all the sites that are just clickbait. What time does the Super Bowl start? Those all go away because Google just answers it, and then you can move on with your life.
And the regulatory question is interesting. There's you guys know this the big TikTok meme of the pelican trying to eat a capybara, and it's just can't quite get its beak around it at all.
I've missed that one, but I get the idea. Yes.
I think you just Google for pelican and capybara, you probably find it. That's what a lot of this stuff reminds me of, right? Of regulators actually trying to, get their beaks around what to do with this thing, and they just kind of can't deal with it. And it's a really deep and interesting problem. I would say as important. Yeah, exactly.
You've just enriched my life significantly, Phil. Thank you.
You're welcome. So what are we going to do? We could just take a moment to appreciate this gift.
If you're not watching the video, just imagine a pelican trying to eat a rather large rodent-like mammal and not being able to. you get the idea.
And I would love to engage in this again in good faith, because it's easy to make fun of regulators, but to the extent that we need governments to do something, it's probably about this potentially society ending thing. I'm not sure what to do.
I feel you, Phil, but I don't know, 6 years now, multiple meetings at state, at DOD with
these guys. You've met with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here, the issue is we cannot get our shit together in the United States. The EU's gone a direction that is about regulating, I think, to some degree, without thinking through the knock-on effects.
That's pretty clear.
China,
if you go to go to Europe
Right.
and try to surf the web, every page is covered with a cookie banner that you have to
Right.
click through to no purpose whatsoever.
Yeah.
we lack long-term. We lack a long-term vision in this country, and we lack good long-term leadership. That's the issue. There's the Biden administration, just as an example, issued an executive order on biotech that literally took, it was not his original idea, that order. It was it started with the Obama administration, and then he couldn't get it done. Trump couldn't get it done, and then it was Biden. And really, at the end of the day, it's just it doesn't have teeth. So we just don't have, one of the things that I've been recommending and trying to stand up is 10 years ago, I wrote this whole thing and recommended a sort of office, cabinet level sort of office of the future. We did have something called the Office of Technology Assessment that got defunded in the 90s. And short of that, we just don't have any, and nobody's in charge of long-term vision on science and tech. And I know everybody's got different groups that they will note, but we need something that's horizontal that touches all the other agencies. We don't have that. We've got a whiplash situation in our government. And I think we've got people who are going to become apathetic because we've got the same, it's like a rerun. We've got the same people running again for this next go around.
I'm actually, to be honest, more worried about the end of the world with climate change than I am about whether it's really going to be a race between whether AI takes over or we all get boiled to death in a giant sea of
Again, this comes back to, there's something I will no longer bring up Bitcoin around friends because it's a little bit like giving them parenting advice. I can't talk about religion or parenting or Bitcoin because there's this religious insanity that takes over.
Oh, those people have moved on to AI, I thought.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. So now this AI conversation is completely polarized.
Yeah.
And it's just I'm just exhausted.
Well, one of our editors has just pointed out that thanks to AI, we can bleep all the profanities in this show.
Sorry, I will stop. I'm not having it today. I'm so sorry.
We have AI. Please swear your little heart out.
Sorry, I will stop.
No, it'll be automatically bleeped. It's amazing, this technology. Just bleep, bleep, bleep everywhere. No, this is such a good conversation. And frankly, this is the first, we've been talking about this for months. It's the first time I really feel like I finally have nothing wrong with all of our other hosts, but two really smart people who've thought about this. Is you've been thinking about this for almost a decade, who are, kind of insightful into all of this. It doesn't give me great hope, but it doesn't, I'm not worried anymore either, right? Because these LLMs aren't going to eat us alive.
Look, I'm optimistic. I'm just annoyed.
Yes, that's in a nutshell. I think that's Amy as well. Optimistic but annoyed.
Yeah, I'm less eloquent than Phil.
He's a wordsmith, you can tell. So optimistic. I'd like to hear from both of you what you think. Obviously regulatory issues and all this other stuff. There's a lot of chaff in the air. But what do you think in the best case scenario, Amy, this could look like in 5 or 10 years? Where are we kind of headed? I love the medicine story.
Yeah,
that's remarkable.
So what I would say, let's put aside geopolitics and the real possibility of yet another AI winter because I think a lot of outsized expectations are never going to get fulfilled. So like, let's put that stuff and regulators talking out of their, whatever. Let's put that aside. There are incredible opportunities on the horizon. So this like thing that I mentioned with this company, the company's called Absci. They're doing really They're doing really cool stuff, right? And
so cool.
The possibility of getting to a point where we can shrink what might have been 10 years, it might have taken 10 years down to, let's say, 18 months to get viable candidates for things.
Well, we saw that with mRNA, right? I mean, we got the COVID vaccine so fast.
Exactly. So it just means that the possibility of medication being one size for me, custom for me, versus one size fits all is a real possibility. This is an issue that's very close to my heart because my mother died, I think, needlessly of a rare cancer that we just not a lot of people had it, so there wasn't a lot of research. My dad's got Parkinson's and dementia, and the way that we deal with that in the United States or everywhere is kind of like, let's try to make this situation as comfortable as possible. Yeah. Right. I think so the thing that I find promising about AI is that it is part of a Venn diagram that includes biology. And there's a lot of really awesome possibilities that we then have to think through to make equitable and to make sure there's not negative knock-on effects. Like I mentioned medical deepfakes at the beginning before we started.
What is that? Yeah, tell me about that.
So somebody has already figured out a man-in-the-middle attack. Well, sorry, there's a couple of things. Not that one. Somebody's already figured out a way to, they've demonstrated how to infiltrate a database that houses scans. And to put what looks like a tumor in where there wasn't before, or to take one away, which would potentially mean that somebody goes in for chemo that didn't need it or doesn't, who did. I was with it was Brazil week in New York last week. So there's all the big Brazilian business people and politicians and stuff were in the city. And I was talking to a bunch of them and I said, and I just kind of thought of it at the moment, but I was like, what if Lula, the president, his name is Lula. What if Lula, you could destabilize the Brazilian government by deep faking, every president has a exam once a year. Every CEO does. You could destabilize a government. You could destabilize a company by making it appear as though somebody is sick who's not. And then they go in for treatment. I mean, you would hope that they have second opinions and whatever else, but it presents potentially novel security threats that we hadn't thought through before, which we can manage. We just have to plan in advance.
Well, I think Amy understands how unlikely it is that we will do any of that, right? Our government is a random walk, and we just bounce off of light posts and end up where we end up.
I think to get slightly technical, I think, and this is stuff that I think Amy understands better than I do. But I break things up into a few different categories in terms of AI. There's the general computational ability that machine learning is really help with, but even ML, even something as broad as ML is just like a type of, a branch of algorithms. But there's been massive progress on that. I'm a very early investor in a company called Occam's Razor, for example, which also does novel therapeutics discovery for Parkinson's and neurodegenerative diseases by, reading everything ever published and suggesting compounds and doing really, really cool stuff. And there's massive potential for that. That if you want to call that AI, sure, at some point, right, it's just math. So yes, we are getting much better at math to figure this stuff out.
And our computational models are getting bigger and the data sets are getting bigger and the speeds are getting faster. Right. And so we can do more than we've ever done before, whether it's AI or math.
Absolutely. LLMs, and in particular, these generators, right? What the G stands for in ChatGPT, the T, the transformers, are a very interesting sub-branch of algorithms that can really help us with a bunch of stuff, including how to like process language. So a big leap forward that is happening right now is our ability to process huge amounts of natural language at scale. So we could take things that were said or written by people, we can analyze them, we can data mine them, we can find all sorts of things. We can combine that with our improved computational models that can have all sorts of positive results in healthcare, in biology, and all sorts of stuff. None of that is what's really getting most of the attention. What's really getting most of the attention is, in many ways, the least interesting segment of all this, which is just using it to generate language, using it to like pump out speech or, text or art, just like, blather. And that stuff, like that's the sexiest part. That's like the most impressive part if you're really not thinking about it very deeply, because it turns out these systems can generate very glibly lots of language. And that's like that least impressive part of AI is the thing that's getting 95% of the hype and attention over the past 6 months. And that's the thing. That's why I say like I am optimistic, big picture, but I am annoyed as well, because I actually think that like this stuff is not the interesting part. But its ability to hurt us is significant.
That's what happens. I mean, that's that's what it takes to get a populace that really doesn't understand what's going on to kind of get excited about it. I am concerned about your notion that the infrastructure we're developing is not necessarily useful or germane.
Well, it's worse. It's worse than that, right? It's because like the ability, like it's hard to see I think it's going to take a while for us to see the really giant benefits of this. But I think the problem is, I think the cost we pay immediately. I think like all of the ways that this is going to break things is happening now.
Societally.
Right.
Yeah.
Like basically we are looking at, this is going to be the year of a tsunami.
It's going to be messy. Yeah.
Here's what I think.
We're looking at a tsunami of crap right now.
Yeah. Speaking of tsunami of crap, so Goldman, I think, put out a report that, I don't know, was attempted to list or quantify the number of jobs that'll go away in X amount of time. Lots of people are doing that right now. So again, here's what I think
AI would do a good job of that report.
These are all the bullshit jobs, though, right?
Well, but
especially writing
yes
these
and
reports.
No. But here's what I think is plausible. I think that there are, if it is the case that we are maybe not looking at a recession, but certainly not looking at a period of strong growth economically, and we're coming off of a wave. So there's 100, 200,000 tech workers displaced out of jobs. I wonder if, because I've had conversations with the heads of companies, one of the questions they're asking us is to build a model showing them which jobs can go away over the next 3 to 5 years. And my answer is, we're not going to do that for you. But I'm concerned that
Why not?
this may
Why
be
don't you want to
planting
do
the
that?
seed.
Is that not possible, or you just...
Because I don't think AI is going to replace all these jobs over the next 3 to 5 years. I'll give you an example. I'm constantly experimenting, right? So I pulled a P&L from a publicly available hospital, and I dumped it into ChatGPT, and I used 4, and I asked it to look for an 8% reduction in overhead without challenging whatever patient outcomes or whatever else. So it did that, and it did it relatively quickly, but there was nothing in there that was useful.
Right.
So it was just sort of like a super generic. If it had been an MBA student in my class, I would have given them like a D for not coming up with anything tangible.
But if it was a McKinsey consultant, you would have given them $1 million.
Absolutely.
And ChatGPT did it for less. Yeah.
But here's my concern. Well, let's go back to McKinsey. If you guys want to read a great book, it's When McKinsey Came to Town. It's very interesting. But a lot of big box consultants will come in because the problem that they're solving for is, how do we improve our margins? And the easiest way to, in the very short term, improve a margin is to get rid of headcount. So what I think could be happening is companies are going to see this sort of permission to get rid of jobs earlier, because AI will, I'm air quoting again, like AI will do it better than a human. AI may be able to imitate a human, but we're not at the point where the insights are there yet. So I think that a bunch of companies are going to let go a whole bunch of people because they think that this is cheaper, better, faster, and realize that like they're cuppa-berried.
Should I worry that the guy who was a direct report to Sundar Pichai and is now in charge of AI ethics at Google was a longtime McKinsey consultant and became partner at McKinsey? Should I worry? Should I be scared?
I am not bashing McKinsey, but that is not what's happening here.
Okay.
But I am now hearing enough of the same conversations in enough of the tops of organizations. They're looking at these reports as like a green light to reduce headcount.
Yeah. Well, they'll take whatever they'll take any
mistake.
excuse, right? That's just an excuse. That's not.
I think there's no such thing as AI ethics, right? There's only ethics.
Okay, excellent. Point well taken.
And I think like when we have when we have a sharp point like this where things may be changing, like it's a very good reminder that like we haven't necessarily decided what our ethics should be anyway. And like that would be a healthy thing to take away from all this. It's like,
maybe.
What do we want as a society? What are the outcomes that we want? And maybe that's the step of how the regulators can try to do to be productive about this. Isn't so much figuring out like what to ban and what to restrict, but we can have a discussion about what are the outcomes that we want. Let's describe the world that we'd like to live in.
That's a good point because we're focused on. That's a great point because we're focused on outputs.
Right.
Quantity,
outcomes.
right? Yes. Outputs. We are not focused on outcomes. Yeah. And I think that tends to happen when business and tech come together.
Yeah. Like I'd propose, for example, a thing that I think could be very dangerous if we ever slip away from this is if we ever get to a point where no human understands deeply at a very deep level how important stuff works. We've long since gotten to the point where most people don't understand how most things work. And that's fine, right? Like, I don't really know, like I couldn't tell you exactly how the TV that's, on my wall here works exactly. I kind of know a little bit, but I couldn't really describe it to you. But the people who made the TV could tell you exactly how the thing works. When I write code, I haven't actually written any code in probably a decade, but I used to be a programmer. I couldn't really tell you like how the code that I write in Java like gets translated into machine code, into ones and zeros. But I know people who absolutely can exactly, and I know how I could if I really wanted to put in the work. I think it's a very important kind of societal norm that we never give up like actually knowing how something works at a very deep level. And that's definitely something that I feel like we're in the danger of slipping away.
Jerry Pournelle warned about that in his novel Lucifer's Hammer, that we would get to a state where we didn't understand how our technology worked, and this is like the you see this in the prompt engineering phony jobs. Yeah, you don't need to code, just prompt engineer. Yeah.
I saw a job posting for $300,000 for a prompt engineer.
Yeah, and this is waving a dead chicken around. This is literally superstition, right? We're literally going to have a class of people who wave dead chickens and like incantations.
But it's good money while you can get it.
Right, but we don't want to make like a cult and like a cultish religion around our technology.
Technology would be a bad
right
thing.
Where we don't understand it, and I think we may be heading there. We don't have to get there, but I would propose
we're definitely
I would
acting
propose
that
that's
way.
like a very good thing to strive for, and probably a very good thing to try to enforce in regulations. Is like somebody needs to understand this at a very deep level.
Well, and there are people like Jeffrey Hinton and Blake Lemoine who are kind of implying that it's a black box and you can't understand what's going on inside. And I think you're right. And
therefore we shouldn't use it then for serious things.
Yeah.
That's not true of every type of thing. That's only true of like LLMs because of how they're created. And so, yes, that to me is an argument for, well, let's not like before we wire up the whole world to be run by a thing that we can't fundamentally understand, let's not do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's take a little break just because I have to, but also because you probably need a drink of water or something. What a panel. I was smart. Jason Howells and I both decided if you've got Phil Libin and Amy Webb on one show, you don't need anybody else. I should just step back and let you guys talk. Phil is at all-turtles.com. You're turning into a podcast network here. Look at all the shows you guys are doing. That's great. The newest series, Culture Fit, talks about racial bias in tech. All Turtles is, I use the word incubator, but you prefer studio, software design studio, I guess. Yeah?
Yeah.
lots of portfolio companies, including one that Phil's using right now. He, believe it or not, is not sitting in front of a beautiful rainforest. He's probably in some grim, dungy basement somewhere, but
No, I'm actually here.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Bentonville.
Northwest Arkansas, where life works here. The first Walton's right there, the first Walton's drugstore.
That's why, and everything Walmart does, it's perfect, and I can't criticize it because I'm literally looking out the window at the.
Are you really in
office.
Bentonville? Seriously?
I am. Yep.
Like
Past
that's
2
where you
years,
live
it's
now?
Amazing. That's where I live.
Really? I didn't know that.
2 blocks from here. Yeah.
I thought you were in the Bay
visit.
Area.
It's great. Nope, I fled. Now I'm in Bentonville.
There's a really good art museum in Bentonville. Have
Oh
you
my
been?
God, Crystal Bridges. I was there today.
Yeah.
I'm there
I've
several times a week.
I've wanted to go. I've never been there. It looks amazing.
Why
I'll show you
Bentonville,
around.
Phil?
Come
I'm
visit.
fascinated. How did that happen? Do you have family there?
It was kind of random. We were just looking to just flee, during COVID. So we thought we'd go to a few different places, and yeah, we had some friends here because they'd just gotten the job at. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Walmart, I think that's what it's called.
Walmart.
Walmart. And they said, yeah, it's nice and quiet. Come hang out for a couple of months. So we did that intending to just leave, but we just fell in love with it because it's pretty amazing.
That's one of the side effects of this pandemic. Lisa and I both thought the same thing. I don't have to be here. I don't have to be anywhere. Yeah. We could do our jobs anywhere. There's high-speed internet. So why not?
That's what I was started telling people. I started thinking that I can live anywhere, so I may as well live somewhere nice. I can work from anywhere, so I may as well live somewhere nice. What I realized is the second half of that is I'm actually much better at work because I live somewhere nice.
Don't you feel like though that you need to be, in person with people at some point? Like your founders, don't you like? So you're flying around a lot.
Not nearly as much as I used to. But yeah, people come over. I go see them.
Oh, you make them fly to Bentonville. That's it.
I get it. Really nice here.
Get on one of those Walmart airplanes. They're coming in every 5 minutes, and you go to Bentonville. Yeah.
We have a whole all about what you should do in person, what you should do on live video.
I want to hear
like
about
this,
it.
What you should be on recorded video.
We're trying to deal with that here because I want all my editors and producers in studio with me. Yeah. Of course, I'm sure they hate that idea. But there's no excuse for not being at your workplace anymore.
Yeah. I've also been entirely replaced by an AI months ago.
Oh, so there he goes. He's glitching. He's glitching.
Yeah.
If you want to glitch too, mmhmm.app. Really cool. Amy Webb is also with us. She is with the Future Today Institute, newly redesigned, beautiful website. If you want to know more about what they do and what they create, and Amy's clearly one of the smartest people in the world. She's also the author of The Genesis Machine, Our Quest to Rewrite Life in the Age of Synthetic Biology, and the Jeannie Pirro endorsed The Big Nine.
That was such a surreal, bizarre day in my life.
Fox News loves The Big Nine.
Oh my God. They really do. They really do.
Great to have you both. I am honored that you are here. Our show today brought to you by, and I'm honored that you're here too, watching the show. Thank you. I bet you're glad you're here too. Our show today brought to you by ExpressVPN. I want you to, the next time you go into private mode or incognito mode in your browser, read the pop-up, the little fine print that appears, which nobody reads. They just go, yeah. It actually says your activity could still be visible to your employer, your school, your internet service provider. In fact, all incognito mode ever does is hide what you're doing from somebody on your computer. That's not incognito. If you really want to stop people from seeing the sites you visit, you need to do what I do. You need to use ExpressVPN. Think about all the times you've used Wi-Fi at a coffee shop, a hotel, even at your parents' house. Without ExpressVPN, every site you visit can be logged by the admin of that network, or the big corporation that owns the ISP, or Starbucks, Howard Schultz writing it all down, even in incognito mode. I mean, that's not privacy. What's more, your home internet provider can also see and record your browsing data, even in incognito mode. In the U.S., they're legally allowed to sell that data to advertisers. They could just pass it along. ExpressVPN is an app that encrypts all your network data, reroutes it through a network of secure servers so your private, online activity stays just that, private. ExpressVPN, it works on all your devices. It's easy to use. One button, you're immediately joining the server that's nearest to you. And I got to give them a little plug because ExpressVPN invests in their architecture. It's fast. You can watch HD video through ExpressVPN. That's, it doesn't bog you down. They also invest in IP addresses, so your numbers are rotating. So you're even more private. It's not always the same IP address. One button connects, and your browsing activity is secure from prying eyes. You can even put ExpressVPN. They sell routers. They have very good routers, actually. Or you can put it on certain routers. You can find out more at the website. And then protect the whole house. Stop letting strangers invade your online privacy. Protect yourself. ExpressVPN.com/twit. There are whole hosts of ways to use this. Maybe you're in Turkey and you'd like to see what's going on Twitter, for instance. ExpressVPN.com/twit to get 3 extra months free with a 1-year package. ExpressVPN.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. Speaking of Twitter, they did block, in fact, a bunch of anti-Erdogan tweeters at the request of the Turkish government. May not have been to much avail because I think they're going into a runoff. The election was today. Twitter does have a new CEO. Elon Musk has selected Linda Yaccarino, formerly in charge of advertising at NBC Universal, to helm Twitter. Elon says he will continue to run the technology organization, much to the, I'm sure, the dismay of the engineers there. I guess he'll continue to post all his humorous tweets. I presume he will also continue to drive policy at Twitter. Do both of you still use Twitter? You still use Twitter, Amy? I see you have a Twitter handle.
Ish. I don't. Ish. I don't know. Most of the people that I used to follow, like my crowd, dispersed to other places. So I'm,
That's the problem. They disperse to many places, right? Instead of.
It makes me sad. I do find the new hire, the new CEO, less curious than everybody else. This is a person that has not served as a chief executive officer in a CEO function. He's a pretty specific. It's a pretty specific role with a pretty specific set of duties. This is somebody who was like the head of advertising at NBCU. So I think this is really just about teasing, like getting advertisers back onto the platform. I don't think it's truly about leading the organization into the future.
Elon will continue to fulfill that role, right?
I've heard a couple of kind of cringy panel conversations. I heard a cringy panel conversation where she was interviewing him, and it was a lot cringy. So there was a lot of praising and I'm a cool girl and you're a cool guy and we're cool together and just a lot of that. So I don't know. I'm on Mastodon. I'm on the Twit server.
Thank you on twit.social. Good. That's a good place to be.
But
the problem is
I don't know.
that your friend group is dispersed to the four winds.
My friend group is dispersed. I'm actually talking to people on the phone again, and I don't want to do that. It's a horrible. I blame Elon for making me talk on the phone.
Yeah, I've said it before. I think, it's sad. Twitter had a real value, despite, its kind of rocky ups and downs, and we're kind of losing it. And that's just, I think that's what it is. I don't know what else to say about it. How about you, Phil? Are you still a Twitterer?
I am, yeah. I mean, I don't tweet that much. I kind of go through periods where it kind of runs hot and cold. I just got the new Legend of Zelda game, so I'm not going to be feeding much for the next few months.
Have you started?
I just downloaded it, check it out. I even got the Legend of Zelda edition.
You're gonna play it on the Switch. You're not gonna play it on a television, like a big monitor.
I'm gonna do both. I think I've got some flights coming up, so I wanted something I could play offline.
We just on Ask the Tech Guys did a little demo. This game came out Friday. It is already, in fact, I have it right here on my Switch. It is already.
Everyone wave their Switch around.
Everybody wave your Switch. It's already on Metacritic and Yeah,
It looks
is.
amazing.
Yeah,
It
it's
looks
already
amazing.
being hailed as the best video game of all time. I think that may be a little overstatement, but if you're a Zelda fan,
I mean, I thought the last one was one
Yeah.
of the greatest pieces of like art and culture of all time.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Amazing.
it is. I think
Deeply
it's
inspirational.
that's one of the reasons we showed it on Ask the Tech Guy. I said not as a promotion for the game or as an ad for the game, but just you're going to hear a lot about it in the next few weeks, and you perhaps would like to know more about what it is. And I think it's cultural. I'm not of an age where either Mario or Zelda was in my formative years, but I do like games, and it is such an open world, and you can do so much, including building. That it's very interesting. I'll probably play a lot more of it. I've only gotten to the first few hours of it. We had our
Phil, what's the story? What's the new storyline?
I don't know. I literally
started?
just finished
So
downloading.
I could tell you a little bit, which is it's the same storyline. So as you may remember, Link was gone for 100 years, came back. He hooked up. He got rid of the Calamity Ganon, cleansed the world, but got severely injured. So he's waking up from his coma. Zelda's there. They go down into the basement underneath the castle and discover an ancient civilization. So it's kind of the precursor civilization
Prequel?
to Hyrule. It isn't. It's a sequel, but there's a whole new open world, a bunch of new adversaries and puzzles. It's huge. It's beautiful. And one of the things that happens almost immediately is you get to a high vantage point and you look around and you can see the world, and it's huge.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's both got an underground and above ground component. The building is very interesting. I think a lot of people will be kind of a Minecraft style building mechanic that's going to be quite good. But seriously, literally, some of the review, Open Critic saying best video game ever. I mean, it's already, and it's only been out for 2.5 days. But
I need time.
yeah,
Well, and I think we need like, I think a lot of this large language model AI stuff reduces the amount of work that it takes to make something mediocre. And I think the antidote to that is making stuff that is really exceptional. I'm very much looking forward to this as being something that I hope is going to live up to expectations, to be really exceptional. I really think the last game was. Like, this is, for me, the most optimistic way to look at ChatGPT and stuff like that is it should raise the bar of what it means to be human. It should raise the bar of what it means to be like made by people. Like, I've already tried to apply this to just my own stuff. Like, I think like, well, if ChatGPT could have written this, I can't. Right? Like, I have to set the bar higher. And yeah, like I really think that this is going to be like, I am very much looking forward. I could be disappointed, but early reviews are very positive.
I think
this could be an exceptional thing.
That's an excellent point. That one of the things that happens with technologies is that there's a higher value put on human effort. You know, that it suddenly becomes more valuable. The art that's created by humans, not a machine, or the writing that's created by a human, not a machine, or a game that's created by a human.
And of course, it's not accurate to say that like AI, it's either made by a human or an AI. Like, everything in the future, I think to Amy's point, is going to be made by humans using AI. Like, our tools will all become, AI infused. We'll just have to find that balance. Like, what we're seeing right now is not AI infused. It's just like mediocre crap that things are being churned out. Very much looking forward to seeing what like the next Legend of Zelda, that comes out in whatever. I guess it was 5 years since the last one. The next one, 5 years from now, obviously will be made by people using a tool set that very much is AI informed. And there's a potential that it becomes even greater. But we need to find that equilibrium. We need to find that like, we're not like hand coloring pixels. We're using modern tools, and modern tools will become AI infused. And hopefully that will lead to even more beautiful, exceptional things. But what we're seeing right now in this kind of early phase is just like AI generated mediocrity.
Yeah. As a point of example, Snapchat influencer Karen Marjorie released an AI-powered virtual girlfriend based on her voice, her story, and it ended up just basically being a sex chat. which I don't think she's too unhappy about because she's charging $1 a minute, even though she says, "Oh no, that's not what we wanted."
So that's an interesting regulatory question. I wonder how prostitution is actually like legally defined. Well, how do they?
Well, it's not. I mean, there's no sexual act.
exchanging-
It's just a text chat. Certainly not illegal prostitution.
Well, I'm asking because, in Utah, I'm sure you guys talked about this already at some point, but Utah changed its privacy and age things. So like Pornhub, I think you have to somehow verify with a driver's license that you're over 18.
Yeah, can I get my porn chick? Because I'd like to go to, of course, instantly Pornhub left Utah. And even if you got your age verification, you couldn't use it. But there are plenty of sites you could, I'm sure.
Generative systems. That's another one of these like gray areas that the states, I think, are going to have a lot of power, and we wind up with ever more splinter net versions of. Actually,
it's an interesting point. If you're a highly conservative state where they're worried about social networks effect on kids, a AI-based sex chat bot might be something to bring down the law.
This is actually an interesting topic. So I was an early investor of Replika, Replika.ai, which was in the news more recently.
That company took a turn.
It kind of didn't. It's kind of been, the idea of Replika. And you should have the CEO, Eugenia Kudia, on your show. She's fascinating. The whole point of Replika, which we helped with, at Old Turtles many years ago, was that you could have an emotionally resonant connection with a chatbot, with an AI, actually much easier than a factual one. You can make an AI that spoke to like an emotional connection. It was more possible to do that than to make one that would give you like factual, answers about stuff. And so they designed this thing to be initially kind of a friend, a companion, a mental health bot. It was about giving people support and therapy. And it went, and more recently, it went into all sorts of kind of erotic and sexual direction. Some of it intentional, some of it not. There was a backlash. They turned a bunch of the sex stuff off, but then users felt really lonely about it because there was a lot of people who actually
this was their friend. Yeah.
And so they restored it. But I think like a well-designed version of that is actually quite laudable. Like the only embarrassing thing would be doing this poorly. So yeah, like half-assing a sex bot could be quite harmful, but doing it thoughtfully and doing it well is potentially a valuable thing. I wouldn't reject that offhand. Which is not necessarily what Replika is doing.
This existed in China, 6-7 years ago? It was the precursor to Tay. It was the same code.
Yeah, well, Microsoft learned nothing from that experience. Yeah.
No kidding. But I mean, there was a bot that did possess, it could remember conversation. Yeah. If you had a soccer injury, it had a persona. So I think it was meant to be an older teenage girl. But there was this research done, and like most people didn't realize she wasn't a human. And then when they did realize that they had created, just like Phil said, this like deep connection that they didn't want to let go. So they continued chatting with her anyways. And then
it's a little creepy. Right? I would worry about the long-term. I mean, it's like the pillow brides in Japan. I mean, I worry a little bit about the long-term impact of such a thing.
Look, I think there's, right, we are potentially more lonely than we've ever been, right, as a society. There's all sorts of stats on this.
Yes. But is this the solution?
Well, but hold on. But we're more connected to other people than we've ever been, right? So like this was always the big lie of Facebook, right? Facebook was saying, we're about connecting people. Right. And actually turns out that you're not about connecting people. You're about connecting you with your own biases and getting you out of actual like human connection. And loneliness is not about lack of interaction with other people. Loneliness is fundamentally about a lack of understanding of yourself, a lack of connection like with yourself, a lack of like knowledge and expertise about like what your emotional state is, not being able to name your emotions, not being able to think about those. And social media has made a lot of that much worse. So like, yeah, it's kind of creepy. I mean, it's weird if you make it weird. But a thoughtful tool that's designed to help people like understand themselves a bit better through conversation that isn't with another human. So it's not judging you. So it isn't going to do anything like potentially harmful, is very valuable to many people in many conditions.
Freudian psychotherapy, like traditional Freudian psychotherapy, the therapist says very little, right? Yeah. It's all about the process of talking it out. I suppose you could do psychotherapy with a bot, but I wonder if some of the value of psychotherapy is going in the room with into a room with a human.
That was one of the original
some of the negatives too.
That was one of the original intents of AI. There was a early chatbot built, right, Eliza, for therapy.
Eliza was terrible because Eliza had no. I mean, they've gotten better.
Eliza wasn't meant for that, right? It was just like Eliza was a little. It was a toy, right?
Toy,
but
yeah.
It just said, "Look, the first bot I ever wrote, and I really think I think I should be known as the godfather of these conversational. I wrote a bot once, many years ago. It was called Rashbot." And the way Rashbot works is you texted it a picture of your rash, and it replied, "Ew." That's all it did. Except 10% of the time, randomly, it also added, "You ought to get that checked out."
Oh, good.
So you would text it a photo of your rash or anything. Obviously, it was doing no image recognition, and it would reply, "Ew," and sometimes, "Ew." You really ought to get that looked at. And I think that was kind of like the MVP product for all of the AI that we have now.
Okay. Rashbot. When he first said the name, I thought, well, he can't mean RASH, but I guess he did.
Yeah. Was ahead of its time.
Do you think, I mean, seriously, do you think that psychotherapy could be done by an AI effectively? I mean, if
100%.
If a Freudian therapist just goes, every 5 minutes.
I mean, Freudian therapy has been discredited.
I think so.
100 years ago.
Yes.
But I think.
I don't think it can.
You don't think so?
I've been in cognitive. No, I've been in cognitive behavioral therapy for several years.
Yeah.
And I started out with an acute issue, and then I kind of stayed because it's a little bit like
it's fun.
AA.
Yeah.
It's not. No, it's not fun. It's
okay.
hard work. It's very hard work, but it's like I need to check in regularly.
You're hooked.
So here's why I don't think it works, because the thing that I needed treatment for at the beginning is not the same thing that I need right now. And what I have now with the same guy is learning a little bit about theory and where some of this is coming from. I think the problem is if he was how would you encode a system to teach it to evolve with the patient? And how would you be able to anticipate that what I'm looking now for is more almost like instruction on theory of mind and things like that? Yeah. What I need is so vastly different from what somebody else at this stage might need that I think that there's really no way, maybe sort of a extremely short-term, very acute issue that has more limited parameters, but we don't really understand how the mind works anyways. I think it would be this is not where I would push the frontiers of AI.
I think as a tool, it could be useful for some people. It certainly wouldn't be the same as doing with humans. And I think there's going to be a next generation of therapists that are coming onto the market right now that will grow up with this technology and will use AI-powered tools. So it'll be sent to our chest. It'll be augmented intelligence. It'll be a combination of.
What is it that we're all looking for? We're all seeking insights. This is the word we haven't used yet, but that's what all of this is about. It's not truly about automating things so that we don't have to do them anymore.
Exactly.
Right? It's about getting to new depths and new insights.
It is. This is maybe the most profound thing about this. That this is very much what you said. I don't think anyone needs us to make it easier to do things that we don't want in the first place. Reducing the friction to mediocrity is not a virtuous thing. That's going to make the world worse. It's not going to make it better. We don't need to make it simpler to do things that are poor quality. We don't need to reduce the friction of the bullshit jobs. Which is what 95% of this stuff is. But maybe to Leo's point, that's kind of always what the beginning is, because you're taking the low-hanging fruit, taking the easy stuff. And if I'm trying to be optimistic about it, it's about saying that like after we've sort of washed through that, which hopefully happens quickly, we wind up kind of using these AI tools to make really high quality, effective things, not easier, just just possible.
You've talked
Like,
about
we raise the
coding.
bar.
You've talked about coding, Phil, and a lot of coders are using Copilot on GitHub and similar tools. Are they?
I think temporarily, but yeah.
Okay. So you don't think it's of real value?
No, I think it's a tremendous value, but I think it's probably a stepping stone to better computer languages, right? They're using it to automate things, and so the things that are automated ought to just be part of the language in the beginning. So like you just like probably the next generation computer languages are constantly evolving, and my guess is that the next few that come out are going to be deeply informed by things like Copilot, and then you just won't need them. This is what Amy was saying before. Like we could just like step one, so you have a bunch of nonsense. Step one. Step two is you bring in AI to automate that nonsense. And then hopefully we all move on to step three, which is you just get rid of that stuff.
Right.
Not automate it, you just get rid of it.
I'm pretty sure that ChatGPT could write Rashbot right now.
It could write Rashbot. It couldn't write Zelda. It couldn't write
not write
Zelda.
No.
Although people working on it could certainly use Copilot to save some time.
And the Writers Guild, which is going on strike, among other reasons, one of the reasons is they don't want AI to be utilized against them. They fear that an AI could take all the episodes of The Simpsons.
So they're doing the thing that the AI will never do, which is go on strike, which is maybe not the best thought.
Maybe.
I wonder if they ask ChatGPT what their strategy should be. And it told them,
isn't that fascinating?
No, but
go on strike.
we do a lot of work on shows and with studios, and I've had a couple of higher level folks very seriously say, "Are we there yet? Can we get?
They want to
these AI
if
systems?"
they could. Yeah,
they want to because what are the external forces pressuring them? There's more consolidation coming, so the streamers are going to start consolidating down to fewer than there are right now. There's a glut of content. And in order to keep subscriptions high, you have to keep pumping things out, but the business model doesn't work. It's too expensive. So they're looking at this. I was thinking through, like, is there any franchise where you could theoretically get a script 80% there? And it would have to be something formulaic like a Law and Order, which pulls headlines, the story concepts from the headlines. It's basically the same thing that happens, every show. But we're nowhere close. That being said, I think I've had meetings with 4 different studios about scripts involving everybody wants to write something about AI that's going to come out. So like brace yourselves, in the year 2025 and 2026, there's going to be like more AI shows about AI than any of us want.
Your job, I think the way I usually put this to people, and I forget who I first heard say this is not original by me. Your job is not going to get replaced by AI. Your job is going to be replaced by someone using AI.
Interesting.
So like if you're refusing to use it, yes, your job is in danger. You're going to lose your job to someone who is using it.
What would you recommend now? Or is this stuff just toy and not worth spending time on? I mean, obviously, if I could make $300,000 a year as a prompt engineer, I might try that. But what would you say if you were serious about becoming this symbiotic AI human thing? What would you do right now? Is there anything you would do right now, Phil, to pursue that?
I'm just trying to get higher and higher quality in everything that I do, and I'm looking for.
Not worry about AI at this point.
Not worry about it. Yeah, just use and then and I haven't incorporated ChatGPT or AI successfully into my daily workflow because for me, I have not found the thing that I can do that would actually make the quality better.
That's exactly.
I found lots of ways that I could automate crap, but then I just don't do the crap anyway, and it turns out I don't need to automate it.
The one thing
I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah,
please.
The one thing I've done with ChatGPT that actually was useful, we had a surprise visit to Genoa on our vacation, Italy. Mm-hmm. Knew nothing about it, didn't have any guidebooks. Asked ChatGPT to write a 3-hour walking tour starting at a specific point. It was quite good. Mm-hmm. It didn't take me to any non-existent spots. But everything else I've done is very toy-like and not useful. I mean, I have fantasies that maybe ChatGPT I could say, tell me, rank the top 10 tech stories of the week. Give me summaries for these as my rundown for the show, for instance.
But it won't do a better job than you would at that.
Yeah, but it would do it and I wouldn't have to. So even if it was 95% there, I would be happy.
But then the next step of that is like in the audience, why am I watching this? Because I could just ask it to do the same thing.
Never mind. Forget I said that, folks. Ixnay on the Atche. Microsoft.
What's the name?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, what's the name of the company? Imran Chowdhury, former Apple exec, started Human. What's the name of that company? It's Human something.
What does it do?
This is
Well, it was revealed finally after all of this time. He's a former Apple guy. They're making a invisible interface. So it's a chat bot, but it's not like the A word or Siri. It's it's not a living demo. So it was a concept, but the idea is we wear something and you sort of tap it as instead of a wake word. He demoed it at TED. And was like, "Hey, summarize." I was just in a meeting. Summarize it. Give me the highlights. Tell me what's happening. That's it. Tell me what's the most important stuff in my day. I have a terrific executive assistant. She's great. I cannot put her in my pocket and travel with her everywhere.
Yeah.
So the idea is this is a sort of living. It's an EA
through
thing.
genetic modification.
The advancement here is the UI, right?
Right. So this is for a long time, we built a model a couple of years ago showing that smartphones had plateaued, and I don't care what Google's Pixel Foldy phone does. We're on the other side of the hill now. And I've been thinking that glasses would replace it. Glasses present a bunch of really challenging technical problems, but it makes sense that, to me, that's what would be next. This introduces a different type of UI.
How does he project this onto his hand?
So there's the thing that I saw is like this little, it's a little sort of oval, like a black oval that seems to have both a projector and a camera. So the idea would be, if the demo that he showed, which again I think was staged, but it was his like wife calling, and he knew that was her because he
raised his hand and it says Bethany is calling.
Who it was.
Yeah.
Right. It also.
By the way, the difference between raising my hand with a phone in it and not in a phone in it is kind of de minimis. I mean, yes and no. Yes and no. I think it cuts down distractions. If I've got a phone in my hand and I'm doing one thing, I have so many other potential things I can then get into. This is really more sort of single serving. But the thing that I also thought was really interesting is the input mechanism visually. So imagine being able to hold a food item or something up and the thing knows how many calories I've consumed or how much energy I'm going to need for a rash,
ride.
And it could tell you whether
or a rash. There you go.
Some help.
Should I eat this thing? Or?
He has $100 million in funding from Kindred Ventures, including Sam Altman.
So again, I don't know how this thing scales.
Well, I'm going to guess he's hoping to get rehired by or purchased by Apple because Apple's got a big problem, which is they're making a honking big thing you wear on your head to try to make this happen, and that is not going anywhere. And
I think that this sort of constellation of new UIs that are coming again is the more interesting piece of the AI conversation than the current modality.
Because I thought voice assistants would be that new UI, and they've failed us miserably. You were just yelling at Siri a minute ago.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the new UI stuff. I know this project. I had talked with him years ago when he kind of started working on this, and I think it's potentially it's a big move. I mean, it's who knows whether it'll work out or not, but it's a really interesting idea. The projector, you're projecting things on your hand. I actually think if you can get that working, that's very cool. It's like I have this rule.
You don't need a ton of tech to make that happen, though, right? If it's not going to be visually pretty.
And if it's talking to your phone or something, anyway, it doesn't have to do the processing.
Yeah, you still need a phone, right?
And Microsoft, no, not necessarily. I think the idea is no phone. Microsoft in 2002 or 2008 had Skinput. Early days, which was, remember that? It was like you could sort of project onto your forearm and interact with it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This has a Qualcomm Snapdragon in it. It's running Android.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's meant to be a phoneless device, right? So you don't need the phone.
It is, but I guess the devices will continue to shrink, right? The interesting thing is the interface modality. So sticking out your hand and having a project on there and then recognizing gestures is really cool. And I agree that probably better than something you're strapping onto your face. This was sort of my central thing. I don't know what Apple's going to release. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. I'm a giant Apple fanboy, like everyone knows. But I've said for a long time that like any consumer technology that makes you look stupid while you're using it is not going to work.
As we learned from the Segway.
Oh, exactly. The Segway and the Google Glass and all of the Facebook Meta nonsense. I should have seen it coming because, like, literally, I think Zuckerberg's vision was always that he's going to ask people to strap something the size of a book onto their face, and they called it Facebook. And like, we should have seen it coming. We should have known.
Do you think
they telegraphed it that far in advance?
Do you think Mark has given up on VR and the metaverse?
I wouldn't know. I haven't
I don't know. No one knows, but
wasn't there an earnings call where he basically said that
we're moving to AI now
a little bit?
Yeah.
It's all AI now. I'm interested to see what Apple does with it, just because, like, I bet you it'll be super cool. I still think here's going to be my test especially for using it in a business application. This is the live and test. I am not going to use any device to have a meeting or for work if I cannot drink a hot cup of coffee while wearing it. If I literally can't do this because it like hits the thing and I spill hot coffee on myself.
Is that an Ember mug? Is that one of them dead. USB heated mugs you got there? Or is this a regular mug? Okay.
This is a menu, but this is a new restaurant.
You've had like 5. What are you drinking over there?
You've
had
noticed.
A lot of them. Yeah.
I've had. I'm drinking tea, but it's a really long show. And so I just set myself up.
What kind of tea are you drinking?
I am drinking Earl Grey with lemon and a little bit of honey because I have my voice is a little bit sore.
I can't do the bergamot. Can't do the bergamot. So
basically, when Apple releases their thing, that's just the test. Like, can you drink a hot cup of coffee? If you can't, then then it's a hard no for any kind of business usage.
I feel like Apple, and it's got too much momentum to stop, but I think they've made a horrible mistake.
I'm reserving judgment until I see it. I'm excited to see it. I love Apple stuff.
Right.
We'll see.
You don't think what's coming are just a pair of old school analog looking glasses that have
someday, not in June.
I hope so.
They're going to announce something in June that is going to look just like the Oculus Rift.
Yeah, if they can release something that's just glasses, that I'm actually looking at the world through clear lenses.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Cameras,
we all agree.
That would be amazing.
The tech doesn't exist, right?
Well, it can. I'm married to an eye doctor who repeatedly tells me every day why that can't happen.
You wrote in a treatment for a wonderful show that unfortunately got canceled. People had these glasses and they were sending stuff. You helped them with the right?
I did.
What was the name of that?
It was called The First.
I really like that.
Hulu's first streamer. Yeah. Our first Bingy streamer.
Yeah.
There is a challenge trying to get the
So your eye doctor guy says no, can't happen. Not going to happen.
I don't know why, but I for some reason was like, I want to read some of those original Magic Leap patents again. So that was my version of fun. Last week I pulled a couple. They were so far ahead.
Yeah, but they couldn't make it.
They needed 10 years. It was one of these things where it was like somebody had very interesting ideas.
Right.
This was basic research, and they just needed to put their heads down for a decade or 15 years and just like work.
We talked about
the market
that.
Didn't let them do that.
You were on the show at one point. That was the problem. Is venture capital isn't going to give you 10 years to do anything. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Look, I will buy immediately whatever Apple releases around this headset, and
I'm going to have you on
for it, and we'll see.
June 12th. We'll have you on the show because I ain't buying it.
If I can't drink coffee, I'm not going to be in a meeting. And so if wearing this means that I can choose between seeing 3D representations of my coworkers and having coffee, that is not
Apple's big innovation. They'll have legs.
They'll have legs, yeah.
Apple needs to do something.
Maybe like a sippy cup as well. Maybe they can come out with a sippy cup.
Oh, you could just have one of those backpacks with a little thing just attached, and then you'd be all set. Camelback.
If Apple releases it, because I'm not going third party.
You need an Apple
Camelback.
Camelback.
Got to be.
Yeah.
They need an Apple Camelback. Yeah.
There is a kind of bizarre TV show on Freevee, Amazon Prime's free ad-supported channel called Jury Duty.
I've heard about that.
It's interesting.
It's hilarious.
One guy is not in on the joke. he thinks he's on a regular jury in a regular trial. Everybody else, the judge, the bailiff, and all the other jurors are actors, including James Marsden as himself. But there's one guy who is a what do they call those guys who are trying to do body modifications for the future? There's one of the jurors is that kind of guy, and he's wearing a Camelback. He said, but the ideal would be to have some sort of bladder that you insert into the body that contains all the water, and he has another one that has all the nutrition he needs. Anyway, yeah, it's pretty funny. The joke doesn't make it through all 8 episodes or whatever, but it's the first few are humorous.
Since we very slightly sidetracked, did you guys start Silo yet?
Yeah, I love it. I hadn't read the books. Did you read the books?
A friend of mine read the books and said he works at AWS. He's a super nerd. And said the books were amazing.
Yeah.
He loved the books.
I feel like I should have read the books. Now I'm watching the show. It's going to spoil the books, and the books are always better, in my opinion, than any motion picture or TV show. But it's pretty good. I missed the most recent episode. I got to watch it. Apparently, it takes quite a turn.
That's on Apple, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Apple's struggling with their content, their studio content.
Yeah, it's interesting. From
my point of view.
Yeah.
There's the new, the big whatever machine. I tried a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I think that there's this formula they're following, and they have the world's largest catalog of music. So there's a lot of interstitials that I think are
a lot of music in all of their shows. You can tell they're selling they're selling the soundtracks. I think it's the Zelda problem. It's all formula, not enough human. Right? And that's what HBO did so well in the early days. I despair of the future for HBO. But in the early days, they were famous. They would say, we're giving you money. We're not going to give you notes. Just do what you want to do. And they got The Sopranos. And amazing stuff. I have to say Succession. Now, you work in business. So I think Succession is the best TV show I've ever seen.
I have firsthand experience with a lot of those storylines and the people who were, and I will tell you that
it's accurate.
I think I'm wondering actually if there was somebody on the inside leaking things.
They apparently did have some Murdoch info.
I think there had to be.
Yeah.
But I'm in a. I wish I had time to play games. At most, I've got like 45 minutes of free time occasionally or a half hour. And I can't get into Zelda for... I wish to God I could.
You have to ration...
I need like a block of time.
You have to ration your amusements because you have important duties.
I do.
You know what might help? I just want to show you something. One of our sponsors. It might help. Our show today brought to you by Miro. We've been playing with this a little bit, and I am very impressed with it. But I'm challenged. I don't know exactly how to describe what Miro is. If you have a team, you're working on something, maybe the team's distributed. Some are in Bentonville, Arkansas. Some are in Rome. You've got multiple tools, you're using a design tool and a typing tool, maybe some AI, and all these brilliant ideas, they're kind of getting spread out and losing information along the way. Miro, the whole idea of Miro is it's a collaborative visual platform that brings all the great work together no matter where you are. Whether you're working from home in a hybrid workspace, your team might be in different time zones. It's got it all in one place, one single source of truth that is so flexible, it can be anything you need. It democratizes collaboration and input. It's great for Zoom meetings. They actually have a timer and icebreakers, all sorts of tools. Their infinite shared boards give product teams a perpetual space where they can drag and drop insights and data. Nothing's lost. You can zoom in or zoom out. They cover so many use cases. You can build visual assets. You can present findings, run brainstorms with cross-functional teams, Kanban boards, voting tools, live reactions, sticky notes, even a timer. You can express yourself, but it's so hard for me to describe what Miro does. Maybe the best thing to do is to go to Miro.com/podcast. Sign up. Your first 3 boards are free. And then check out the Miroverse, because this is what people who are using Miro have done with it. And it will give you a very good idea. Actually, you don't even have to, you could just look at it. Here's a Harry Potter retrospective from the UK government. I don't quite understand that. TikTok marketing strategy, team mapping, product vision, midnight sailboat retrospective. It goes on and on. Oh, here's one for Mother's Day. But this is the point of it. There's even games that people have designed in Miro. Miro can be whatever you need it to be. It integrates with dozens of other third-party tools. We're using it with Zapier because we use Zapier to trigger stuff. Well, we use it with Google Docs because we use a lot of Google Docs. Miro users report saving up to 80 hours per user per year by streamlining conversations, by cutting down meetings. But more importantly than the time saved, the product you create is that much better because your team is staying connected to real-time information, a single source of truth. It gives project managers and product leads a bird's eye view of the whole project so nothing slips through the crack. Nothing I say will really communicate what this can do for you. You just got to try it. So get your first 3 boards absolutely free. Start working better at Miro, Miro.com/podcast. Miro.com/podcast. And, the whole world is available for you. You can do an amazing thing with Miro. We had an amazing week this week at Twit. We've made a little movie for you. Enjoy.
Emojis are such a fun and simple way of expressing yourself, so we thought, wouldn't it be cool to bring them to your wallpaper?
No.
So with emoji wallpapers, you choose.
Oh, this is awful.
This is the keynote?
This is awful.
The keynote?
You get one of these a year, Google.
Previously on Twit News.
We're sitting down with Dave Burke, VP of Engineering for Android, and Samir Samat, VP of Product Management.
I think what we wanted to do today was to showcase not just the technology, but also how the technology comes into each and every one of those products that we all use, and what can it do for me?
Actually, the hard part, in my view, is like, how do you make this approachable, right? And relatable and fit for purpose?
Mac Break Weekly.
Apple is bringing Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro to the iPad. You will have to buy it anew. In fact, it's a subscription.
This Week in Space.
Strange sounds recorded high in Earth's atmosphere from space.com. Tell us what's going on.
The Sandia National Labs scientists, they launched a solar-powered balloon up like 31 miles above our planet. And what they found is this really, really strange series of sounds that repeat every few hours, and no one knows what it comes from. That's clearly aliens, right, Rod?
Okay, wait, let me see if I can reproduce this. Hold on a second. How's that sound?
It's rubbing his
Rubbing my beard against the microphone.
Against the microphone. Actually, it reminds me that for about 15 years, there were audible click sounds in radio broadcasts and other things. Turns out it was some giant Russian antenna that they were trying to use to spy on people, and it was causing radio interference. It wasn't aliens. I think the odds are it's probably not aliens. I hope you enjoyed this week in Twit, and I hope you will continue to watch all of our shows. Of course, our Club Twit members get special access, no ads, no promos, no spy, no, ad monitoring technologies, just the shows all clean, pure. You know what we should do? We should leave the swear words in for the club members so they can hear what it really sounded like. Club Twit is $7 a month, ad-free versions of all the shows, special programming we don't put on anywhere else. That's how This Week in Space got started. Home Theater Geeks is right now in the club in its birth pangs. We've got the Hands on Macintosh with Micah, Hands on Windows with Paul. We've got an Untitled Linux show, all sorts of stuff. The great Club Twit Discord. I think it's the best $7 you'll ever spend, and it really helps us do, I think, more of what we want to do for you. Ad support's nice. Listener support's even better. Twit.tv/Club Twit. There is the version of the show from Alia G. with all the swear words.
I'm a member.
You are. You hang out there once in a while. I love seeing you in there. It's wonderful. I would love to get all the smart. In fact, Phil, I'll send you a complimentary membership too. But love to get all those smart people in here. It's fun because there's something about a social network where people have paid $7 to be there. They just have an investment in it. It's like a private park. You don't get the messing around stuff as much. It's really great. AM radio is on its last legs. Washington Post. This broke my heart because I'm a longtime radio guy. End of a love affair. AM radio being removed from many cars. Ford, BMW, Volkswagen, Tesla. They kind of have the excuse, well, the electric motors interfere with the AM, but really it's, why put it in if people are going to be using their smartphones? It does raise an issue because AM radio is used for safety announcements, emergency announcements, and there are plenty of places where you can't get a cell phone signal. So I imagine there'll be quite a bit of lobbying from broadcasters to keep it alive. Do you guys ever listen to the radio, Amy?
Yes, I listen to college. Usually whenever I'm in a new place, I listen to a college radio station.
Is much better, isn't it? Yeah.
Good. Like I get good, introduced to new music that way. But I was actually on an AM radio show. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's a national show in the middle of the night.
Oh,
I forget the name of it.
Coast to Coast.
Coast to Coast.
Coast to Coast. Art Bell's old show. Now George Norrie hosts it. Yeah.
Yep. I was on Coast to Coast.
Did he ask you about aliens?
It was mostly call-in people. So I was on from like 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. or something when I was launching the last book. And
that's quite a booking. Wow.
Well, here's what it was. It was a lot of people who were really worried about vaccines.
Yeah.
And listen, if you're up in the middle of the night, you're
worried about something.
You're probably anxious. And it occurred to me, so Zelda comes into play. So listening to everybody, it occurred to me that they all must feel like everybody was really talking down to them and just treating them like they were dumb. And I think when you're genuinely anxious and afraid, that is not the right response. So I was like, actually, one guy who had called in, I was like, do you ever play Zelda? And he was like, yeah, I play Zelda. And I was like, okay. COVID is a little, and the mRNA vaccines are a little bit like, you're out roaming around Hyrule and you meet, what are those blobs? I can't remember the name of them, but the blob comes by and like the first time you see the blob, you don't know, is this food? Is this a good blob? Is it a bad blob? Maybe, it's hard to tell. And since you can't recognize what it is, you don't know what to do with it. You're missing the instructions. Once you have the instructions, like, oh, that blob is actually a bad thing and it's going to kill you, you know which weapon in your quiver to pull out and to use to defend yourself against it. That is what the messenger RNA vaccine does for you.
They're
right?
actually called blobs, by the way. That's the official name.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was like, and we just had this moment where I heard he was like, nobody ever, why don't they just tell us that?
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I mostly just listened to people being really worried and telling them like, your fears are totally valid. Like, I get it. This is hard stuff. So it was
very good.
That for 2 hours.
Good. Yeah. That's
anyway.
I
So
think,
I guess
honestly,
that show is.
If AM radio dies, it's because broadcasters have killed it, basically. Right.
I'm surprised that it's AM and not FM, right? Because like you would think that like
FM's
AM
next.
is actually more useful. Yeah, but I would have expected it to go first.
Yeah.
It's like we don't need radio for like higher quality, and AM gives you the range, and it's like
and information, and it works everywhere.
In the apocalypse, you'd rather
That's
have
a good point.
AM radio.
Why aren't they
and
taking
the serious
out FM
shows
radios?
are still commercials.
Yeah.
So it's not like you've. Yeah, I don't know.
I was I thought I'd bring this one to you because of your book, The Genesis Machine, Amy. In the Central California area, there was some deep concern. We had so much rain about mosquitoes. And there was an attempt. Attempt was made to use Oxitec, which is a U.S.-owned, UK-based technology company that generates genetically engineered insects. And they have a mosquito that is basically destroys the Egyptian mosquito, which spreads dengue fever and chikungunya and Zika fever and Mayaro and yellow fever. The genetically modified male that they release mates with regular mosquitoes, but like a donkey and a horse, there's no you can't there's no mosquitoes born. So it actually is a pesticide-less way of killing mosquitoes.
Isn't that how you get mules, though?
Well, no, yeah, donkey and horse is a bad example, but a mule can't reproduce because it's got no, there's no mules don't mate. So the company
self-esteem, I think it's got no self-esteem.
No self-esteem because it's a mule. The funny thing is they have used this successfully in Brazil,
Florida,
maybe I don't know, but green activists in Central California got them to kill it. They're going to have mosquitoes.
Why? Does it say why?
Because it's genetically engineered.
Look, this would take us a long time to untangle, but there's a couple of things happening. The first is the city council, it's not a true city council, but the people sort of the community council in charge of Key West, at the time that they had to decide whether or not to use this technology, they were like a couple of retired real estate agents. Another guy was like a retired restaurateur or something. They're retired in a beautiful place. The last thing that they wanted to be doing was to make heated, challenging decisions in a heated political environment about genetically engineered mosquitoes, obviously about which they knew very little. The issue is that we're forcing communities to make these decisions, and the people and the states and the federal government and the states are intentionally handing this down so that the political heat is off of them. And I think it's a horrible thing that we are asking locally elected officials to do. It puts them in a terrible position.
In California, it was Friends of the Earth who lobbied the California Department of Pesticide Regulation, presumably people who would know enough science, and they convinced them to withdraw the research application, and then they published a press release said, victory.
Yeah, but who knows? I mean, listen, we don't know the political, what was happening on the back end. There are solutions, there are knock-on effects, and there are people who talk about genetically modified as though that is some type of ultimate, like, horrific thing. In the United States at this point, it is very difficult to consume something that has not in some way been modified.
Right.
I mean, it sort of mirrors some of the talk about AI, which is just completely salacious and over the top, and we're not taking 5 seconds to be reasonable, which makes me crazy.
Well, you're going to have your mosquitoes in the Central Valley, and you can thank the Friends of the Earth.
Yeah, I don't know.
Spotify has ejected thousands of AI-made songs. By the way, they're all terrible. but this is a flaw. People can gamify Spotify by there's a whole bunch of songs about poop, for instance, on Spotify, because they know kids will ask Alexa for it. As soon as they find out that they can ask for a poop song, they will, and they make money on it.
Now that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, you can't wait till you try that out. Tens of
Can I ask you a
thousands
question,
of
though?
songs, though.
Why is that? Why is that bad?
I'm not saying. Did I say it was bad? I'm just saying.
I meant
what
why
happened.
would Spotify kill this? Why are they removing them? What's the damage?
I mean, it's taking money away from
legitimate artists, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I mean, I realize that I literally haven't listened to real new music with any regularity post like 1997. That being said, a lot of music, let's face it, kind of is interchangeable. And
can I recommend, if you want to catch up on all the stuff, watch Eurovision, which for the first time was broadcast in the United States on, I think it was on Peacock this year. You will be amazed at how bad some of the music is. Oh, no spoilers here. I'm sorry if you saw that, who won and all of that, but this was something I watched last night, and I was thinking, this is why the U.S. music industry is so dominant worldwide.
I think it's rich that Spotify, let's talk for a second. I forget who did this study, but somebody looked at how Spotify is putting together the sort of recommended daily lists.
Yeah.
And they're not random. So if you look across multiple accounts, everybody's basically being recommended the same songs over and over again. So I don't care what anybody says, the discoverability, you see this across different platforms in the digital arena. The same thing happens with search. The same thing happens, with music. It's not as though everybody truly is getting a random assortment of enhance. If you click on enhance in Spotify, so like, you know what I mean? Like, so what does it matter if people are making AI?
Yeah, I played.
I've been listening to the cheese tax song on a continuous loop from TikTok. Just cheese tax.
Cheese tax.
Cheese tax. It's a dog thing. I have a new dog. And
is there a cheese tax?
Cheese tax.
Should I be worried about this?
If our regulators knew it,
you gotta pay the cheese tax every time you're cooking. When the cheese comes out, this puppy comes.
Is this
looking. The rules are the rules, and the facts are the facts. And when the cheese drawer opens, you gotta pay the tax.
Okay.
Does your dog like that song?
There's like my dog enforces the cheese tax. It's an extremely.
He gets a little bit of whatever cheese comes out of the cheese drawer that the dog gets. Okay, that's fair.
There's thousands.
That's fair.
Tens of thousands of these clips, and this is why I hope TikTok will never get banned.
Mr. Phil Libin, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I hope you enjoyed your 5 cups of tea. You didn't run out.
Only three, but
only
they were
3.
very large.
Oh, good.
Only 3, but they were large. See?
You didn't run out. Did we make it through the entire show without a tea shortage? I think it's hysterical that you noticed that, Amy. I'm very impressed.
Well, I've got a bunch of vessels on my desk too, but I've been drinking black coffee out of this one and Topo Chico out of this one.
Perfect. Perfect. You cannot make a Molotov cocktail out of Topo Chico, by the way. I've learned that.
Is it the glass is too thick? Or?
Yeah, no, it doesn't burn.
Someday you'll have to tell us why you know that.
Next time I'm on, I'll be plugging my new restaurant, which is be called Bentoville.
Bentoville in beautiful
in Bentonville.
Oh, that's a great idea. That sounds cool.
Are you going to start a restaurant that'll have bento boxes in Bentonville?
Yep, it's called Bentoville. It's all happening.
I love that.
Go to the website now. You can see, but it's
really?
all the pop-ups are sold out, so you can't get anything right now.
And this is your restaurant?
Bentoville. Well, I have partners who know what they're doing.
The problem, unfortunately, when I search for Bentoville, is Google's too smart and says, "Oh, you mean Bentonville?"
Yeah, but that's going to change.
I love it. I think that sounds so cool.
The world is going to come to Bentoville. Yeah, Mr. Bento Box Phil Libin. His app is It's mmhmm.app. Got to try it, Mac and Windows. You can present with it. You can change your backgrounds with it. It makes every Zoom call better, or WebEx, or Teams, or Meet, your video companion. Thank you, Phil. It's so smart. I just love having smart people on the show, because then I can sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Bentonville. That just blows my mind. All turtles.
Come visit. I'll show you around.
Yeah, I will. Amy Webb, just great to have you. The book is The Genesis Machine, Our Quest to Rewrite Life in the Age of Synthetic Biology. Future Today Institute is her company. What do you want to plug? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're like interested in AI, the book that I wrote previous to this one is The Big Nine, and it's still
Janine Pirro's favorite.
Janine Pirro has endorsed it. So
actually, it's a great book.
I'll plug Topo Chico.
I have all your books, and I brought this one out because it's the most recent, but I should have brought The Big Nine out too. Next time I'll know better. Had I been watching Fox News, I would have known. How tech titans and their thinking machines could warp humanity came out 4 years ago. It was prescient. Both these people knew what was coming long before I did. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. We do Twit every Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. Thank you for watching. If you watch live, you can chat live at irc.twit.tv or in our Club Twit Discord. After the fact, the show's available at the website, twit.tv. And when you get there, you'll also notice a link to the YouTube channel. You can watch it there. There's also a link to various podcast players, or just search for This Week in Tech or Twit on your favorite podcast player. Subscribe, you'll get it automatically. The minute it's done, just in time for your Monday morning commute. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye.
This is amazing.